Thanks for listening to another cozy mystery audiobook by Rosie A. Point. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Lemon Murder Pie, a Sunny Side Up Cozy Mystery, Book 5. Written by Rosie A. Point. Narrated by Abigail Reno. Chapter 1. Sunny, sweetheart, there's no time to explain this in a note. I've found out something important related to the break-in that happened at the cottage a few weeks ago. Meet me at the cafe the minute you can. Have your coffee and come quickly. Aunt Rita. I scanned the handwritten letter I'd found in my aunt's sun-yellow kitchen, blinking away sleep. It was just past 7 a.m., and my aunt, the hard worker that she was, had already left for the Sunny Side Up Café. Her grumpy cat, Bodger, sat next to his half-full bowl of kitty food, eyeing me with his usual measure of disdain. Granted, that disdain had decreased over the past few weeks. One might have said Bodger liked me. He wasn't about to claw at my ankles when I walked by anymore. "What do you think, Bodger?" I asked. "Did she look upset when she left this morning?" I turned the letter over, but there was nothing written on the back. Aunt Rita had left the note propped up against the coffee machine, knowing full well that I had to have my morning cup before I began thinking straight. Bodger let out a low meow and flicked his tail. I couldn't decide whether he was concerned or not, so I fixed a pot of coffee, yawning. Now that I thought about it, Aunt Rita had been acting strange lately. She'd been getting up even earlier than usual, and that was saying something since she rose before the early birds got a shot at the worms. Aunt Rita had a sense of mystery about her. She was the type of woman who kept her cards close to her chest, but she'd been pretty open with me. Why was she changing her behavior now? And what was the note about? I sipped my coffee, walked through to the living room, styled in creams and teals, and found my favorite dog in the world fast asleep on the sofa. Usually, Fudge, chocolate brown with curly fur, slept outside. Shedding was a nightmare. Aunt Rita must have let him in. "Good morning, Fudge," I said. He cracked an eyelid, then let out a cute yip. Fudge wasn't the type of dog who lounged around. He leapt to his feet, barking and jumping, trying to lick my cheeks. All right, I laughed, and ruffled his fur, holding my coffee mug out of reach. "So, you saw Aunt Rita this morning, too?" Fudge barked, I assumed in the positive. Bodger meowed from the kitchen. His annoyed, "Give me more food now, even though I haven't finished my food," meow. Or was it "This morning's breakfast has been sitting out for a total of 20 minutes and is now spoiled, so you had better give me another bowl of fresh food immediately, peasant," meow. Boy, that was a mouthful. I walked through to the kitchen, picked up his bowl of kibble and jostled it around before placing it back on the tiles. Satisfied, Bodger settled in front of his bowl again. "Every morning, eh, Bodger?" The end of his tail shuddered. With my morning routine out of the way, there was nothing left for me to do other than get ready for work at my favorite cafe and anticipate two things on the agenda for today. First, whatever it was my aunt had to tell me about the break-in that had happened at the cottage a couple weeks ago. And second, I had a date with Nick this evening. Butterflies erupted in my stomach. Nick and I had been on 3 dates in the past 2 weeks, and things had been going slowly. Well, but slowly. That suited me fine. I'd been through enough drama with my ex-husband Damon to last me a lifetime. When I wasn't worried that Nick would lose interest, a legacy of Damon's behavior, I figured, I was stressed that my ex-husband's nasty past would come back to bite my heels. or other parts of my anatomy I'd prefer spared from pain. 20 minutes later, a car horn honked outside my aunt's cottage. "Coming!" I yelled, though Dee couldn't hear me from the street. I let Fudge out for the day, set the house alarm, then hurried into the small, neatly kept front yard. I waved at my friend, seated behind the wheel of her mother's car. Dee rolled down the windows. "Ready for another day in paradise?" she called, grinning at me. She wore glittery eye makeup and had streaks of purple in her shoulder-length black hair. "Absolutely." I shut the picket gate behind me, grimacing at the humidity. That was one part of living in Parfait, Florida, I wasn't accustomed to. Heat and humidity in the early hours of the morning. I got into the passenger seat and put on my seatbelt. Then I paused, frowning. My aunt's VW Beetle, blue with an egg decal along the side, was still parked in our driveway. Usually she took the car when she went into work early, which was why Dee was picking me up today. Perhaps she decided to walk? Then why didn't she mention that in the note? I shook the worries out of my head, dismissing them as humidity-induced paranoia. "How are you this morning, Dee?" I asked. "Sleep well?" "Not really," she replied pleasantly. "I stayed up late to watch a live stream of the new release from SITS. It was amazing. Ji-hoon he was like an angel in the video." She did a cutesy dance move and put up a peace sign. Dee was a major K-pop fan. I'd once gone with her to a Stars in the Sky concert, her favorite group. "That's great," I said. "Did you enjoy it?" K-pop definitely wasn't my type of music, but it made me happy when Dee was happy, especially since she didn't have many friends her age. "It was perfection," Dee announced, her eyes on the road as we wound back into town and around to the boardwalk where the Sunny Side Up was situated. Sunlight glimmered on the water, and a few early morning joggers paced their way down the boardwalk, past the Hungry Alligator restaurant and the other eateries, bakeries, bookstore, and animal shelter in the seaside street. The white sands were graced by surfers out to catch waves before the town woke up. Dee parked her mother's car next to Nick's, and we entered the cafe, the air-conditioned interior providing instant relief. Sounds of prep came from the kitchen, and Carl, Dee's boyfriend and one of the other servers in the cafe, sat at a table with its checked white and yellow tablecloth, wiping down menus. I made a beeline for the office door behind the coffee bar at the back of the cafe, my aunt's note fresh in my mind. She'd said to come see her immediately. I knocked on the office door, then entered. "Auntie?" I stopped, my hand still on the doorknob. The office was silent, the leather chair tucked against the desk as it had been left the night before, the computer and desk lamp off. What on earth? Where was Aunt Rita? Chapter 2. I haven't seen her. Nick stood at a steel counter in the cafe's kitchen, chopping mushrooms for omelets. "You haven't?" I asked. "Not even when you came in this morning?" "Nope. The place was locked up when I arrived. Maybe she decided to go for a walk on the beach," Nick said. "It wouldn't be unlike Rita to do something like that. You know how much she likes her cardio." "Yeah," but I couldn't rid myself of the sinking sensation that something was wrong. Why would she have told me to come meet her down here if she decided she was going for a walk? It doesn't make sense. She might have changed her mind. Nick quit cutting vegetables and met my gaze. His was full of warmth that made those butterflies in my stomach perform acrobatics. "I'm sure everything's fine, Sunny. Don't worry about it." But that was easier said than done. After the past few months in the Sunny Side Up, I'd learned that strange incidents, even murders, were often around the corner. They'd pop out when you least expected them, and I would tear Parfait apart if anything had happened to my auntie. She was the one who'd saved me when I'd had nowhere else to go as a child. And she'd taken me in, even though my ex-husband's nefarious dealings could have brought Russian mobsters down on our heads. "Sunny, have a bite to eat. I can fix you an omelet before we open up for the morning," Nick said. "You know how you get when you worry on an empty stomach." "I'm not hungry." I adjusted my apron, and my phone buzzed in the front pocket. My heart did a little flip. Maybe it was Aunt Rita. Well, of course, why didn't I think of it before? I'll call her and ask her where she is. I'd been so caught up in worrying about where she was, I hadn't even thought to try calling her. To be fair, it had been only 10 minutes since I'd arrived at the cafe. I whipped my phone out and checked the notification. It was an email from Aunt Rita. I opened it hurriedly. "Sunny, I have decided to go on holiday for a while. Look after the cafe for me. Aunt Dita." "Aunt Dita?" I muttered, scratching the wrinkles on my forehead. "What's that?" Nick asked. "An email from Rita," I said. "But it doesn't read right. Come take a look at this, Nick." He washed his hands and dried them, then came over and read the email over my shoulder, the smell of his earthy cologne distracting me. Yeah, that's kind of weird. She would never misspell her name like that, and she wouldn't say holiday either. She'd say vacation. This doesn't sound like her. "Stop it, Sunny." Nick placed his hand over mine, pushing the phone downward. "You've got to relax. Rita's fine. She's up to her usual shenanigans. I mean, this is kind of weird, but is it really out of the ordinary for Rita? She left you in charge of the cafe before, remember?" "That was different." "How?" "I don't know, but it was. I'm telling you, something's up." Nick turned me around, his hands on my shoulders, and searched my face with that blue-eyed stare. "Seriously, you've got to relax. Rita's a grown woman. She can look after herself." "I suppose. It's just strange." "Sure it is, but there's so much else you can focus on right now. We've got our date tonight. I'm taking you somewhere special." "That's lovely, Nick. Thank you." "And Vince is arriving today." I'd been so involved in my own thoughts, I'd completely forgotten that a chef Nick had befriended on a recent baking course was coming to visit. He'd be staying over at Nick's place and planned on meeting me and everyone else in the cafe. "Right. That's great, Nick. I'm happy for you." I forced a smile. I was genuinely happy for him. "I'm sure you two will have a great time. Are you sure you don't want to postpone our date so you guys can have dinner together?" "No way. I want to have dinner with you. Besides, I already told Vince and he's totally fine with it. And I'd be glad to get out of the house. I've had trouble sleeping the last couple days." "Why?" "Darn raccoon in the basement. I think it's been getting in through the egress window. Faulty latch." "Ugh. Maybe you should call animal control?" "I'll handle it, don't you worry." He winked at me. I was tempted to kiss Nick on the cheek, but we were at work. It wasn't appropriate. I left him to his prep and entered the dining area of the cafe. Dee and Carl were having their coffees at the coffee bar, chatting about K-pop or the day to come or the upcoming events that Parfait had to offer. I didn't bother listening in, but headed for the back office, my insides churning. You have to stop. She's fine. But if she was fine, and that email really had come from her, then she'd answer her phone too, right? I sat down in her chair and called my aunt's cell phone. It didn't ring, but went straight to voicemail. I tried it 3 more times without any luck. This is all wrong. Something's going on. My nerves built to a fever pitch, and I opened the top drawer in the desk and extracted my aunt's planner. Aunt Rita wrote down all her appointments, claiming that writing things down helped them stick in your memory better. And if they didn't, she'd always have a record of important stuff. I opened the planner and paged through it until I found today's date. A single entry had been made for today. Talk to Mildred about the pies, 9 a.m. About the pies? Which pies? We had a lemon meringue pie special this week, sure, but why would she need to talk to the owner of the Parfait animal shelter about pies? Unless Millie had ordered some or we were hosting another fundraiser. I paged through the rest of the planner, searching for more clues. She had scheduled appointments in the planner all week, and the week after this one. Why would she have done that if she'd planned on going on vacation? Sure, the last time had been spontaneous, but she hadn't had appointments lined up then, apart from one for the repair of the air conditioning unit. And more importantly, she'd been reachable by phone. There's something fishy going on here, I whispered, and I'm going to find out what it is. Chapter 3. I had to bide my time until the Parfait animal shelter opened next door and try not to show Dee Dee or Nick that I was stressed. Dee Dee didn't need the extra pressure. Not only was she tired, but when she wasn't working her booty off in the cafe, she was occupied with her studies. She worked part-time to support her mom and afford an education. And Nick wouldn't get annoyed with me, but he'd likely get frustrated that he couldn't placate me. Besides, he didn't get it. He hadn't been involved in a total of 4 murder investigations over the past few months. At 8:30 a.m., I whisked myself out of the cafe, past curious guests, 2 of whom were chief gossips, and out onto the sunlit sidewalk. Folks went about their business as usual, and the boardwalk was already alive with activity. People eating snacks, socializing, or strolling along the beach. The weather was cooler than usual, given that it was almost winter, but not unpleasant. The afternoons, at least, were less humid in winter. I headed into the Parfait animal shelter next door, and the scent of mothballs and fur hit me square in the nose. Mildred looked up from the reception desk. Her face lit up. "Sunny, how lovely to see you." She hopped off her seat and tottered around the counter. Today, she wore a worse-for-the-wear pair of slacks and a blouse with a coffee stain on the right breast pocket. "Goodness, I was expecting your aunt rather than you, but come in, sit down." Millie hugged me tightly, knocking her glasses askew on my shoulder, then gestured to the new leather sofa that had recently been bought for the shelter. I hesitated. "So, you were supposed to meet with Rita today, right?" "Why, yes. Isn't she coming?" "No, she isn't," I replied. "Oh, that's odd. She usually lets me know if she has to cancel a meeting. Very punctual under the right circumstances, you know. Coffee? Cookies?" "I'm good, thanks." I wrapped my arms around myself. "Nonsense. You'll have some coffee and cookies. No guest of mine will go without the proper trappings of hospitality." Millie shuffled behind the reception desk and put on a pot of coffee. It wasn't so much the coffee that was the problem, but the cookies Millie served were grave dust dry and liable to choke rather than satiate you. "Please, I'm fine." But Millie ignored me and brought down 2 chipped mugs from her cupboard. "How are you, dear?" "Honestly, I'm worried, Millie." "About what?" I explained to her what had happened this morning so far. The strange letter my aunt had left me, the email that had misspelled her name, and the address book filled with appointments. "That is strange. Rita is conscientious. She always lets people know what's going on, even if she does it in a unique way." Millie poured 2 cups of coffee, then got down the cookie jar. I reluctantly accepted the black coffee and withdrew a cookie from within the jar's beckoning chasm. "She mentioned in her planner that she intended on talking to you about pies? Did you arrange a fundraiser with her or anything like that? I figured it's about the lemon meringue pies we're serving this week." Pies? Millie frowned and closed the cookie jar before returning it to the shelf. No, she hasn't mentioned pies. And I'm certainly not planning a fundraiser so soon after the last one. I thought Rita was coming by for a good old-fashioned gossip. Oh. I took a bite out of the cookie out of habit rather than intention and instantly regretted it. The cookie exploded in my mouth and I held back a cough so as not to offend Millie. She studied me keenly from one of the new armchairs. The decor was out of sync with the pale pink walls, the chipped white tiles, but I was happy that the animal shelter had benefited from the cafe's help during the last fundraiser. I did notice a change in Rita's behavior, though, Millie said, taking a sip of her coffee. I choked down my bite of cookie. What type of change? I didn't think anything of it at the time, but... Oh dear, now you've got me worried. What did she do, Millie? Please tell me. Mildred took a deep breath. She was asking me awkward questions about Alexei. Alexei was Mildred's Russian nephew who had come to stay with her to help her with the shelter. At first, I'd been highly suspicious of him, given my past, but now I'd fallen into a sort of uneasy semi-friendship with the man, or at least an acquaintanceship. Whichever type of ship it was full of holes and slowly sinking. About Alexei? What did she ask you? Who he had been hanging out with lately, where he was staying, and how often he helped me at the shelter. Millie let out a breath. I don't know why she would need to know those things. It seemed as if she was almost suspicious of him in retrospect, but I don't know why she would be or what the suspicion would be related to. Mildred straightened, her lips thinning. Alexei has been an angel ever since he arrived in Parfait. He's helped me so much with the shelter, and he's great with the finances. Besides, he's settled down with Katie now, so if he did have a wild side, well, let's just say there's nothing like commitment to settle a man. Millie, I'm worried. What if something's happened to her? Like you said, it's not like her to go off without contacting people she had appointments with. No, it's not, Millie agreed. Have you tried calling her? It goes straight to voicemail. Oh, dear. Millie nodded to my hand. Eat the last of that cookie, dear. It's going to get dry if you hold it in the air like that. That ship had sailed, and it, too, was holy. I shoved the cookie into my mouth and endured the grave dust texture. After I'd nearly coughed up a lung, I brought out my phone and dialed Aunt Rita's number again. Mildred watched, the wrinkles around her eyes pronounced. Hi, this is Rita. Leave me a message and I'll get back to you. Unless this is a member of the Baking Biddies calling, in which case tell Primrose that I say no. Whatever it is, the answer is negative. And then a beep. I hung up. She's unreachable. I rose, nearly spilling my coffee. Goodness. Millie placed a hand over her heart. Don't jump up like that, Sunny dear. You nearly gave me a heart attack. I've got to go, Millie. I'm sorry. I set the coffee mug down on the table. Go? Where to? The police station. I squared my shoulders. I'm going to report Aunt Rita missing. Chapter 4. I sat in front of Detective Garcia's desk in his tiny office in the Parfait police station, my heart hammering against the inside of my throat. Parfait was a small town, and when I'd come to report my aunt missing at the station, I'd been handed over to Garcia. Not only did he handle investigations into murder, theft, and assault, but he was the lead in missing persons cases as well. Just my luck. Detective Garcia and I hadn't exactly gotten off to a great start. I was always interfering in his cases, and he was always getting annoyed by my interferences. I didn't blame him, but I wasn't feeling positive about him taking me seriously. Just give me 1 sec. Detective Garcia's gaze was trained on a computer screen that had come right out of the 90s. It was blocky and cream yellow color. He tapped its side, frowning, and it buzzed. Budget hasn't been great lately. We're hoping to get an upgrade soon. So, you're reporting a missing person. His deep brown eyes snapped toward me. The change in topic caught me off guard. Yeah, my aunt. Rita? Yeah. I was on the brink of sassing him. I didn't have another aunt, so why even clarify whether it was Rita or not? But I held back. And tell me what's going on, Detective Garcia said. I told him everything that had happened this morning, then removed my phone from my pocket, placed it on the desk, and dialed Aunt Rita on loudspeaker. Her voice permeated the office, and the beep followed. See? She never switches off her phone. It doesn't make sense. And look at the email I received. I showed it to him. He read it, then handed the phone back. Well? I asked. What are you going to do about this, Detective? My aunt is just gone. I'm afraid I can't put in a report for a person over the age of 26 years without significant evidence that they're missing. It's called a silver alert, and I don't see enough evidence here to... You've got to be kidding me. Calm down, Miss Charles. But she's not answering the phone, and... Tell me something, Detective Garcia interjected. Did she leave her purse at home? Her phone? No, I said, thinking back, trying to calm my breathing. It was gone like it always is in the mornings. And what did the cottage look like? Any signs of a struggle? No. She'd let in fudge like she always does, and the alarm was off, but she didn't take her car. Detective Garcia held up a hand. Does she often go for walks or walk to the cafe rather than driving? I jammed my teeth together. Miss Charles? Yes, I replied. So, not only did everything this morning look normal at your aunt's cottage, but she also emailed you to let you know she was going on vacation? Which is not unlike her, I gather, since she only recently got back from a cruise. But the wording of the email was bizarre, and she wouldn't leave other people in the dark, especially Millie from the animal shelter. But Detective Garcia's mind was made up. He shook his head. I'm sorry, Miss Charles, unless you have evidence that Mrs. Jackson is gone. This is ridiculous. I stood up, pressing a finger down on his tiny desk. If you won't find her, Detective, you can bet I will. And I stormed from the office, passing shocked police officers, the few we had in Parfait, and the receptionist. He had to be kidding. How could he not issue an alert? It wasn't like I had to wait 24 hours or something. That was a myth. I stood out on the sidewalk, frustration building in my chest. What would Aunt Rita have wanted me to do? I closed my eyes, tilting my face toward the sky and accepting the morning sun on my skin. She would have wanted me to look after the cafe first. And then, she would have wanted me to take the case. The Sunny Side Up bustled with activity. People ate their lunches, talked, laughed, and complimented Nick's culinary stylings. I sat at the coffee bar next to the clunky bronze cash register, glugging down coffee. This time, it wasn't because I wanted to avoid talking to customers for fear of their judgment. I couldn't quit thinking about Aunt Rita, and I simply couldn't believe that Detective Garcia didn't see what I did, that she was gone, and not by her own choice. Are you okay? Dee Dee placed her tray on the counter, gnawing on her bottom lip. I've been better. I'm sure she'll come back, Sunny, Dee Dee said. She's just being Rita. You'll see. She'll come back before the cafe closes today. You know how much she loves this place. But the words were empty. I hadn't been able to keep what was bothering me from the enthusiastic server. She'd read my anger the minute I'd walked back into the cafe and had dragged me aside and insisted I tell her what was going on. I'll be fine, Dee Dee. Don't worry. Do you need something from the coffee bar? 2 lattes and a cappuccino. Sure. I fixed the order, taking my time and forcing myself to concentrate. It was a good distraction and a nice reminder of how far I'd come. A few months ago, the coffee machine had looked downright scary to me. Now, I could prepare most orders. I finished off the coffees and placed them on Dee Dee's tray. She took them to her table, offering me a quick smile as she left. Everyone seemed so sure everything was fine. Why wasn't I? Where could she be? I murmured. A figure appeared in front of the cafe's glass front doors, and my pulse quickened. But no, it wasn't Aunt Rita strolling into view, but a man. A rather handsome blonde man with sparkling green eyes. He wore a pair of worn-in blue jeans and a short-sleeved button-up shirt that hinted at a strong frame. He entered and strode to the coffee bar, a bright smile parting his lips. Hi there, he said. Hello, I replied. Welcome to the Sunny Side Up. What can I get for you this afternoon? Your name and number? I did a double take. Uh-huh. I'm kidding around, he replied. Name's Vince, and you're Sunny, right? Nick's friend? He's talked about you a lot, and I've got to say his descriptions did not do you justice. He stuck out a tan hand. Nice to meet you. Oh, hi. I shook his hand. Nick has told me a lot about you. The kitchen door swung open, and Nick emerged, grinning. He flipped a dish towel over his shoulder and sauntered toward us. Vince, you made it. Hey, buddy, how are you? Vince and Nick embraced and exchanged pleasantries. The prospect of putting on a brave face while I worried ceaselessly about my aunt was daunting. I had to do something about this. Chapter 5. Later that evening. I'm too stressed, I said. I can't help thinking that she's gone. Oh, Nick, I so want to enjoy our date, but... Sunny, breathe. Nick was dressed in a fresh set of jeans and a shirt. He was larger than life in my aunt's kitchen, but I couldn't shake how I was feeling. I want to go out with you, but... I understand, Nick said. You're worried about her. I get that. And I'm not going to force this. You know what? I'll call and cancel the reservation. What do you say we order some pizza? We can talk about what's going on, and I'll help you figure this out. You'd do that? Sure I would, Nick said. Let me run next door and get changed into something more comfortable. We'll have a pizza party in our sweats. Well, not a party. I know you think she's gone and you need support. I'll be here for you. Thanks. I didn't like that he'd stipulated I thought she was gone. Didn't he? How much more evidence did there have to be? I'd only gotten home from the cafe an hour ago, but I'd already gone up to my aunt's room and poked around. Nick had knocked before I'd begun searching in earnest, and when he'd seen me still wearing the same clothes I'd had on at work, well, it didn't take a rocket scientist to figure out I was freaked out. Nick let himself out to get changed, and I plopped down on the sofa. Fudge whined and placed his fluffy head on my knee. He could tell I wasn't happy. Bodger sensed it too. He sat on the armchair across from me, tail curled around his front paws. You agree with me, don't you, Bodger? That something's wrong? He didn't flick his tail, but let out a loud meow in response. Exactly, I replied. This isn't normal. Another meow. Bodger was usually hissing, scratching, and occasionally meowing, so this strange, attentive behavior led me to believe he was unsettled, and that he was relying on me. A knock sounded on the door a couple of minutes later, and I gulped. Relax, it's Nick. I got up and went to let him in, though I didn't see why he'd have locked the door when he'd left. But it wasn't Nick on the porch. His friend Vince stood there smiling at me and holding a single snapdragon flower that I was pretty sure he'd gotten from Nick's flower bed. Hello? I said, frowning. Can I help you with something? Nick's not here. He ran back to his place to get changed into something more comfortable. Yeah, I know. I'm staying there with him. Oh, okay. Then what on earth was he doing here? I didn't have time for strange encounters of the chef kind. This is for you. Vince held out the flower. You look stressed about something today, so I thought you might need it. Thanks, I replied and accepted it from him. A door shut close by, but Vince didn't notice. Listen, you're gorgeous. I came to visit my friend, but the minute I laid eyes on you, well, I knew I had to ask you out. I nearly cringed out of my skin. Nick and I weren't boyfriend and girlfriend. Gosh, how weird to use that term when I was nearly 40. But I didn't plan on dating anyone else. Hadn't Nick told Vince that we were dating? Come on, Sunny, find your tongue. Look, that's very kind of you to ask and say those nice things, but I won't take no for an answer. A terrible trait in any human being, let alone a man. It was often used as an excuse to behave how they wanted and get away with it. Nick and I are dating, I blurted out. Oh, yeah, Vince said. I know. Then why? Vince! Nick stepped into view on the path, his expression clouded. Oh, hey, Nick. Vince spun toward him and let out an awkward chuckle. Didn't see you there. Can I talk to you for a second? Nick gestured for Vince to come closer. Vince hesitated, then shrugged and joined him. I retreated into my aunt's front hall and placed the flower on the table beneath the mirror. I caught a brief glimpse of my ghostly appearance, dark circles under my eyes and strained lines, before returning to the porch. Nick and Vince stood near the picket gate, a foot apart, speaking in angry yet muted tones. Nick pointed and Vince lifted his shoulders. Behave like that, Nick's voice rose. You can't keep her like she's an animal. If she wants to date me, that's her choice. Talk about secondhand embarrassment. Nope. Actually, this was firsthand embarrassment. Was Vince serious? She doesn't want to date you. What, are we in high school or something? I didn't have time for this immature silliness. I marched down the front steps, Fudge rushing out behind me, barking once or twice, then running to the side of the cottage to sniff and scratch around. That's enough, I said, stopping beside the men, fists on my hips. You're causing a scene and you're going to disturb the Hodges. My aunt's neighbors, a cute little family with a small boy. Nick and Vince both lost steam. Look, I said, turning to Vince. I don't want to date you. I like Nick, and I'm a one-person kind of girl, so sorry, but it's a no from me. Thank you for asking, though. Vince blushed. Sure. Okay, that's fair. I'll head back to the house then. We'll talk later. Take these. Nick handed over a set of keys with a banana keychain. Can you check the basement before you go to bed? Raccoons I told you about? Yeah, sure, whatever. Vince took the keys and walked off. Sorry about that, Sunny. I didn't think he was going to approach you like that. If I had, I would have told him not to come down here. Idiot. Nick gritted his teeth. I suppose I can't blame him for being interested. Don't worry about it. I started toward the cottage, my mind focused on more important things, like figuring out exactly where my aunt had gone, or where she'd been taken. Chapter 6. I should get going, Sunny, Nick said. I enjoyed the pizza, but I'm not sure I'm comfortable going through your aunt's things. We had eaten, me picking at my food and Nick trying in vain to keep the conversation flowing, while Fudge barked and played outside and Bodger watched us from the kitchen doorway with hearty disdain. I'd barely been able to hold back my theories and fears during dinner, but Nick had been super supportive. I want to help you with this, he said. arms folded as he leaned against the door jamb in my aunt's bedroom, his tan forehead creased. "I know," I replied. "I know this is weird, Nick. You can go. Sorry I messed up our date." "Look, anything else you need, let me know." I walked over to him, the boards creaking underfoot, and gave him a hug. "Thank you. I'll let myself out." Nick pecked my cheek, sending a sharp spiral of nerves through my chest, then walked off down the hall. He paused, looking back at me. "I'm serious, Sunny. Whatever you need, let me know. I'll even hand out flyers or put up notices if you really think she's missing." I didn't reply because it was a scary thought, and because it annoyed me that he didn't see it like I did. Sure, Aunt Rita had taken her things with her, though not a packed bag as far as I could tell. Yeah, she'd let Fudge in and switched off the alarm, but that didn't mean everything else had gone to plan, that she hadn't been harmed or... Stop and focus. I turned to my aunt's bedroom, the soft scent of lavender emanating from everywhere. Her bed was neatly made, styled in plain white sheets with accents of lilac on her pillows. A neat cream dressing table was pressed against one wall, and tasseled ropes held back white curtains on either side of the window. "Oh, Auntie," I murmured. I walked to her bedside table and opened the drawers carefully, searching around inside for any clues. My aunt firmly believed that everything had its place. She was incredibly neat, which made searching for things that might not belong much easier. But the bedside table, dressing table, and closet didn't provide any clues. The safe in the closet was firmly locked, and the code my aunt had told me when I'd arrived here, her birth year, didn't work when I input it. Sheesh. I didn't even know what I was looking for in here. Just something my aunt may have left behind for me? But what? Her letter had said that she wanted to talk to me about the break-in that had happened at the cottage, and that it had been important. It had to be related to that, the fact that she was missing. Bodger strutted into the bedroom, his tail straight. He paused, considering me for a moment, then meowed. "What is it, Bodger?" I asked. "I'm in the middle of something here." He padded past me and slipped under my aunt's bed. "Bodger?" He meowed again, batting at my feet without his claws extended. "What is it?" Under different circumstances, I'd have been suspicious that Bodger was about to ambush me, but I got the feeling he wasn't luring me into a clawed attack. For once. I got down on all fours and peeked under the bed. Bodger's yellow eyes greeted me. He meowed once, then walked further back and pressed his paws atop a square shape under the bed. A book. "Bodger, you're a genius." I got down on my belly, wormed underneath the bed, and grabbed hold of the book. It was a mystery journal. My aunt and I kept a collection of them in the living room so we could theorize about cases we watched in our crime shows. Recently, I'd been using one to keep notes on the case I'd been investigating. Was it really investigating when you got into as much trouble as I did? I opened the journal, so caught up in my excitement I remained under the bed and brought my cell phone out of my pocket. I turned on the flashlight and aimed it at the pages. Bodger sat next to me, his furry shoulder pressed to mine. He let out one appreciative purr, the first I'd heard from him that wasn't related to food, then fell silent. The mystery journal was mostly empty apart from the first few pages where my aunt's handwriting was frenetic. She'd drawn an image of something weird and blocky, then written the letters RRDS across the front of it. RRDS, I whispered. What do you think that means? And what on earth is the drawing supposed to be? Bodger let out what I assumed was a quizzical meow. Underneath the image of the safe, my aunt had written several names and notes. House break-in? Pies, 86. Alexei Shaw. Most likely? Maybe not? Connections overseas? Millie. Strange behavior. Pie. Garcia? Nick. Not a chance, but good idea to talk to him regardless. Underneath that, Aunt Rita had hastily scribbled a circle, and that was all. I paged through the rest of the notebook, but there was nothing else there. What on earth? I muttered. Bodger, what do you think? He meow-growled in frustration. But the more I read the strange, fragmented clues on the page, the more convinced I became that my aunt had been researching something important. Sleuthing, though I didn't understand why she'd left me out of the investigation until now. RRDS. Pies. 86. Question marks next to Garcia's name. The people we're closest to written down. A circle. What on earth did it all mean? And was it related to Aunt Rita's disappearance? My gut said yes. Don't worry, Bodger, I whispered and risked putting a hand on his black furry back. I'm going to find her. Bodger allowed me to stroke him once, the most contact we'd had that didn't involve his claws in my ankles, before slipping out from under the bed. All that was left to do was... A horrified yell cut through my thoughts. I jerked on the spot and banged my head into the underside of Aunt Rita's bed. Ouch! The yell came again, and fear caught in my throat. Help! Come quick, help! I knew that voice. It was Nick, screaming from outside the cottage. Chapter 7. Nick! I darted down the hall toward the front of the cottage. Fudge barked wildly in the front yard. Nick, what's wrong? I burst out of the cottage onto the porch, but Nick wasn't outside. Fudge ran up and down in the yard in front of the fence, sniffing the air. I stopped dead. Had I imagined Nick yelling for help? A door slammed next door, and Amelia Hodges emerged, her face pale and eyes wide. What's going on? She called. I thought I heard Nick. Is he okay? I shook my head and took off down the front path. Amelia came along too, and we met up on the sidewalk, exchanging a nervous glance before making for the cute picket fence that flanked Nick's cottage. Nick! I called out. Nick, are you in there? No answer. The front door was open. We moved onto the porch. Nick? I called one last time, dread clogging my throat. Nick, are you okay? Amelia cried as we entered the hall. Footsteps thundered from the guest room, and Nick strode into view, pale as a sheet and with his phone against his ear. Nick, I breathed. What's going on? We heard shouting. How much longer will it be? Nick asked the person on the other end of the line, eyes darting left and right. Please, you have to hurry. I think he's dead. Amelia gasped and pressed both hands over her mouth. I moved past Nick swiftly and peered into the room he'd exited. The guest room, as I'd correctly identified, was usually empty. Except now, it wasn't. Vince, the chef friend who was far too forward, lay on the bed, supine, staring sightlessly at the ceiling. A fork lay on the bed, dropped from lifeless fingers, smears of cream and lemon meringue on its tines. Yes, I tried to check his pulse, but I can't feel anything, Nick said in the hall. Please, hurry. My pulse raced, and my gaze drifted over the bed. How had this happened? And why? But the answer leapt out at me, clear as day. A plate had fallen off the bed, its contents spilled across the floor, the remnants of a lemon meringue pie. Poison. It's got to be poison. I backed out of the room and bumped into Amelia, who had come forward, her curiosity getting the better of her as mine had. Oh, no, she whispered. Oh, I think I'm going to be sick. Is he? I think so, I said grimly, fighting my own bout of nausea. Nick turned to me, his eyes sharper than they had been, but no less terrified. He placed a hand over his cell phone. They're coming. The ambulance and the cops. They're coming, don't worry." "What happened?" I hissed. "I don't know. I came back after our date and he was just lying there like that. I didn't know what else to do. I called for help and then I realized I needed to call 911 instead, and—" I squeezed his arm. He was freaked, as anyone would have been in his position. "Nick," I said, "where did the pie come from? The pie that he was eating." But the 911 operator spoke to him again, and Nick walked off, talking to her. "What now? What should we do?" Amelia asked, brushing her sweaty top lip with a shaking hand. "I don't like this, Sunny. I don't want to be here." And I didn't either. A man was dead, and Nick had been fighting with him a few hours ago. Sirens wailed in the street. Chapter 8. "How are you feeling, Miss Charles?" Detective Garcia asked. Every other time I'd encountered him, and none of those circumstances had been pleasant, he'd been the epitome of a sharp-eyed, miss-nothing detective. This evening, his face was drawn, his eyes straining as they searched the surrounding neighborhood. "I'm okay. How are you feeling? No offense, Detective, but you seem a little stressed." His gaze grew tighter. "I'm fine, ma'am. You can trust me to take your statement." I stood out on the sidewalk in front of Nick's cottage. My heart rate had only just returned to normal after the excitement earlier. How many times had I seen a corpse now? I didn't care to count. If only Aunt Rita had been here to help me deal with this. The thought of her, still unreachable, and the fact that Detective Garcia refused to accept her as missing, made me less compassionate about his exhaustion. "You want to take my witness statement," I said. "Don't you? Because this is a crime scene, isn't it?" Another thing that had changed about me over the past months, I was less scared about asking questions and getting involved. Solving murder investigations, even if you stumbled through a large portion of them, did that to a woman. "It's just a statement, Miss Charles." "A statement because of—" "I'd like you to walk me through what happened in there." He gestured vaguely over his shoulder at Nick's cottage with its cute blue door. "Because it was a murder, wasn't it?" Detective Garcia's jaw twitched. "A suspicious death, at the very least?" "Sure," he said at last. "But you're to stay out of it, Miss Charles." "Out of it? I'm not in it." Garcia grunted like he knew me well enough by now. I considered telling him about Aunt Rita's mystery journal with the strange details she'd written down, including the word pies. But would he take it seriously? And would he confiscate the journal immediately, removing the only clue I had about my aunt's whereabouts? I hadn't snapped a picture of the page yet. I'd wait until I'd taken a few photos, then get hold of him later on and show him the journal. He might not even think it was important. Footsteps and talk sounded from the cottage's small front porch, and Nick and another officer, not a detective since Parfait only had one, appeared. Nick was red in the face, a sharp juxtaposition to how he'd looked after discovering Vince's body. I opened my mouth to call out to him. "Miss Charles," Detective Garcia said, interrupting me, "could you please walk me through what happened?" He poised his ballpoint over the flip pad he'd brought along. I told him what I'd heard and seen, leaving out the part about my discovery of my aunt's mystery journal. Detective Garcia gave nothing away as he listened to my rendition of the events. He simply took notes while I spoke. After I'd finished, he remained quiet for a few moments. "So, when you heard the cry next door from Nick, what did it sound like?" "Like he was afraid," I replied. "He called out for help, and I was sure someone had attacked him or hurt him or something." "Attacked him? In Parfait?" Detective Garcia raised an eyebrow. "Forgive me, Detective, but there have been several murders over the past little while. I don't think a debate about the safety of the town is necessary.
So, you thought Nick had been attacked, Garcia prompted, dodging my insinuation about murder.
Yes. At any rate, I thought he needed my help.
Detective Garcia noted something down. And you saw a pie next to Mr. Domingo, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Lemon meringue if I know my pies, and given that I've been working at the Sunny Side Up for a while now, was there anything else in the house that seemed out of place or suspicious, particularly in Mr. Domingo's room?
No, I didn't, but honestly, I was so shocked about what was going on that I didn't register anything else.
Detective Garcia wrote another note, then studied me, searching my face as if he could read me as clearly as the words on his notepad. And how would you say Mr. Talbot was behaving when you walked into the house?
Concerned, afraid. He was already on the phone with the 911 operator when Amelia and I entered the cottage. I think he found Vince, started screaming, and then decided to call 911.
Why would he scream first?
I have no idea, I said. I assume it was because he was in shock. Look, Detective, I highly doubt that Nick would have fed his friend a slice of poisoned lemon meringue pie. They liked each other.
So there was no tension between them? No disagreements?
The question was so pointed, I wondered who'd told him otherwise. Had one of our neighbors overheard the little argument between Nick and Vince? Because it had been little. There was one disagreement, I said at last, but it was minor.
Tell me about it.
And so I did.
I see.
Detective, I said, I don't think Nick was involved. I'm sure of it. If anything, it's my aunt who's involved.
You're telling me your missing aunt is the one responsible for the death of your neighbor's friend? Detective Garcia asked, even going so far as to use air quotes.
No, I said. It means that she's missing, and I'm sure her disappearance is linked to this.
Detective Garcia took a deep breath. How about you leave the investigating to me, Miss Charles? Stick to what you do best.
I didn't do many things well, but I made a passable plate of eggs over easy, and I'd mastered chocolate chip cookies. I glared at Detective Garcia's back as he walked off. His attitude stank to high heaven, and I couldn't figure out why. He was a good cop, so why the attitude change? Forget about it. I had two mysteries to concentrate on: my aunt's disappearance and the murder of Nick's friend. Could life get any more complicated? Chapter 9. Late that night. The knock on my door shocked me out of my doze. I'd been unable to sleep, so I'd sat up in front of the TV, Fudge's head in my lap, while crime shows played in the background. What? Uh-huh? I blinked. The knock came again, and Fudge barked and jumped off the sofa, trotting toward the front door. I usually had him sleep outside in his comfy doggy house, but after the death of Nick's friend, I hadn't felt safe without him inside, and I'd needed the comfort. Who could that be? I checked my filigree watch. It was 1 a.m., and my thoughts went wild. Aunt Rita? Or the killer? I rubbed the sleep from my eyes and walked through to the entrance hall. Who's there? I called, my hand on the doorknob while Fudge sniffed around at the base of the door, wagging his fluffy tail. It's Nick. I opened up and stood back so the chef could enter. Nick was deathly tired. He swayed in my aunt's entry hall, and for a second I was transported back to the moment I'd first met him. He'd been bright-eyed and ready to attack another day at the cafe. Head on back then. How are you? I asked. I just got back from the police station, he said softly.
I can't go back home while they check the place out, and short of sleeping in the basement with the raccoons, I've got nowhere to stay for the night." He gestured to the bag he'd left out on the porch. "May I stay here? I'll happily sleep on the sofa." "Of course you can, Nick. No problem." Nick grabbed his bag, then entered the cottage. "Thanks. I really appreciate this. I want to sleep, but I feel like I'm going to close my eyes and start replaying everything that's happened over the past few hours." "I know exactly what you mean. You want a glass of warm milk? It might help. I have cookies from our last baking endeavor." Nick was teaching me how to bake so I could live up to my Baking Biddies membership, the most exclusive club in Parfait, and so I could prove my dead ex-husband's assessment of me wrong. "Come into the kitchen," I said. He followed me in, and I grabbed a couple of glasses from the cupboard. "What did Garcia say?" I asked. "It was less about what he was saying and more about what he was making me say. He clearly thinks I'm the one who did it, and I don't blame him. Vince was staying under my roof when this happened, and it looks like he was poisoned." "The pie," I whispered, taking a saucepan out and placing it on the stove. "I knew the pie was poisoned." "But why would you give me a poisoned slice of pie?" It took me a minute to register what Nick had said. "Wait, what? Me?" "Yeah," Nick said. "I found it waiting for me on the front step when I got home after work yesterday. It had my name on the box. I thought it was from you since it had to have come from the cafe. We've got lemon meringue on special this week, though Rita mentioned she might want to 86 them." My eyes widened. "What?" Nick frowned. "What is it?" "The journal. I have to show you something," I whispered. "Wait here." I rushed through to the living room where I'd left my aunt's mystery journal. I had yet to snap the pictures. Maybe I was clinging onto it for too long, but it felt like the last piece of her I had left, apart from Bodger, who had been surprisingly friendly of late. I returned and opened the journal to the page with the notes. See? She wrote the number 86 and pies. I didn't realize it meant 86 as in cancel or cut the pies off the weekly menu. The pies are connected to her disappearance, I'm sure of it. Nick took the journal from me and pressed the page flat, studying the symbols and words written on it. I poured our mugs of coffee and set them out, then took a seat next to him and read the key words and names on the page again myself. "What does this mean?" He gestured to the blocky image with the letters RRDS written on it. "I have no idea. I was trying to figure that out." I sipped my coffee and waited for the caffeine to hit my system and enliven my senses. "Weird," Nick muttered, scratching the stubble on his broad jaw. "You know, Sunny, I think you're right. I think Rita's silence and Vince's murder must be connected. Poisoning by lemon meringue pie, one from our cafe." "Right, one I thought you'd left for me." "Oh, thank goodness you didn't eat it," I sighed, then pressed a hand to my forehead. "Sorry, Nick, that was callous of me. I wish nobody had eaten it." "I know." He leaned over and gave me a one-armed hug. "The only problem now is that your fingerprints are on the box. They'd have to be since you brought the pie inside, I assume." "Yeah, I did. Vince must have decided he'd have some," Nick replied, squeezing his eyes shut. "I left it on the kitchen island, which makes it my fault even though I had nothing to do with the poisoning." I remained quiet and let Nick work through his emotions. Fudge padded into the kitchen and lay down next to my aunt's kitchen table, letting out a whine as he settled his head onto his paws. "Now, we need to figure out two things," I said, determined not to let fear and overwhelm get hold of me. My aunt needed my help. The more time passed, the more I realized I couldn't afford to let myself panic. "Yeah?" "First, Who bought a slice of pie since it's been on special? A takeout order. We can ask the servers who they helped and draw up a list of names. And if there are receipts from credit card purchases, we might be able to suss out a few names. Right, Nick said. Well, that sounds good. And second, Nick prompted. I glanced down at Fudge, whose deep brown eyes darted from side to side, looking first at me, then at Nick. We have to work out who would want to kill you, I said. Nick went still. Man, I was so caught up worrying about being accused of Vince's murder that I didn't even think of that. Well, either the murderer wanted to get rid of you, or they wanted to get rid of Vince and pin this on you. But they surely couldn't guarantee that Vince would eat the cake. No, except, well... What? I asked. Well, Vince has a sweet tooth. His favorite pie is lemon meringue, Nick said. But I don't see how anyone could have known that. He doesn't know anyone in town apart from me and you. Right. It was a head-scratcher, but I was willing to scratch away if it meant clearing Nick's name and finding my aunt. Chapter 10. Who bought a slice of lemon meringue pie? Dee Dee twirled a strand of purple-streaked hair around her finger. Why? Are you worried they'll present them at the Baking Biddies Craftathon? Gosh, I had entirely forgotten about that. I was meant to be a part of it, helping folks set up tables and ensuring that everything at the event ran smoothly. But it was at the end of the week, and I had far more important things to deal with. No, it's got nothing to do with that, I said, drawing her away from her tables in the Sunny Side Up and toward the counter at the back. Oh, Dee Dee frowned, an unusual sight. Though her life wasn't easy, Dee Dee met every morning in the cafe with exuberance. Sunny, are you okay? You look kind of different. Frazzled, you mean? I replied with a small smile. I haven't exactly been sleeping well. An understatement. I had gotten maybe an hour last night, and Nick wasn't in any better shape. He'd come in looking of death and smelling of coffee and aftershave after an uncomfortable couple hours on my aunt's sofa. What's going on? And why do you want to know about the lemon meringue pie? It's complicated, I whispered, glancing over at the corner table where Cherry and Sienna, two of Parfait's chief gossips, sat staring at me. They had heard the rumors about Vince's death and Nick's involvement for sure. And with less customers in the Sunny Side Up because of those rumors, it was difficult to avoid their beady-eyed glances. I told Dee Dee about what had happened with Vince last night in more detail, and how Aunt Rita had left behind a mystery journal with clues. An expression of excitement came over the young server. Another mystery, she whispered. This is awesome. I mean, it's not awesome that he died or that Rita's AWOL, but it's still cool, you know, that we can figure it out. Okay, so you want me to, go ahead and find out exactly who bought lemon meringue pies in the last 3 days, I said. That's how long it could have kept in a fridge. I want to look at the longer end of the spectrum for this, just in case. Right. I've removed lemon meringue pie from the specials for the week, too. If someone's using them for nefarious purposes, I don't want to give them another shot at it, I said, though it was unlikely they would use our pies again. And if, by some fluke, the source of poison was from here, I don't want it to happen again. But if it was from here, wouldn't Detective Garcia have closed us down? Dee Dee asked. Yeah, he would have. Which told me that the poison must have come from elsewhere, and that the detective had evidence proving that. All right, Dee Dee said, her eyes alight. I'll talk to Carl and ask him who he served lemon meringue pie to. I'm looking for people who got takeout, I said. Specifically, I'll check the receipts for names and signatures. Dee gave me a broad smile and 2 thumbs up before moving off to intercept her boyfriend, Carl. They bowed their heads together before splitting off to tend to the few tables they had. That's a start, at least. A well of panic gathered below my diaphragm, threatening to push up into my chest and take over whenever I stopped moving for too long. I collected the receipts from the cash register, then sat at the coffee bar going through them and noting down the names of those who had bought a slice of lemon meringue pie as takeout. Thankfully, we marked that on the receipt. My list of names was short. Detective Garcia, Alexi Shaw, Cherry Rose. My gaze lifted to Cherry in the corner. She raised a perfectly plucked eyebrow in return. Was I really going to ask her about this? I squared my shoulders and walked over. "Hi, Cherry," I said, nodding to the woman with her short auburn hair. "I like your haircut." She pursed her lips at me. "Yeah, you should try it sometime." Sienna, who was blonde and also middle-aged, checked her manicure and didn't make eye contact. I didn't bother pointing out that I'd gotten a cut in color a couple weeks ago. "How is everything?" "We're hoping it's fine," Cherry replied, sniffing. "But this place has a reputation for poisoned pie, so—" "Speaking of pie," I said, searching around for a reason to ask my question. I was concerned about you." "About me?" Cherry pressed a hand to her chest, splaying fingers tipped in red claws. "Color me intrigued." "It's come to my attention that you bought a slice of pie from the Sunny Side Up 2 days ago," I said. "A takeout order. We're checking on all the customers who ordered a slice of pie for takeout after recent events." "Recent events? You mean the murder?" Sienna drawled. I nodded curtly. "Was everything all right with the pie?" "I assume it was fine. I gave it to my mother, and she's alive and kicking." Cherry rolled her eyes. "Lord help us all." "All right, thank you," I said. "Enjoy your meal." "Yeah, nothing like talking about poison pie to work up the appetite," Sienna replied. Cherry laughed as I walked off, and angry prickles raced over my scalp. Why did some women have to be so mean? They'd gossiped about me since the minute I'd arrived in Parfait. I shook away the negative emotions and returned to the coffee bar at the back of the sun-filled cafe. Dee hovered there, her cheeks pink, looking as if she might pop if she didn't get the chance to tell me what she'd discovered. "Lay it on me," I said, getting my notepad out. I couldn't cross off Cherry's name technically because she might be lying about who the pie had gone to, but I made a little mark next to it to show I'd spoken to her. "Okay," Dee whispered, straightening her K-pop-themed t-shirt. "Okay, so Carl told me he served one person a slice of pie for takeout. Gordon from the Hungry Alligator." My aunt's would-be beau? The two had been flirting for weeks now, but nothing had come of it yet. I wrote his name down on my list. "Yuli is out sick today," I muttered. "I wonder if we can get a hold of her." "I already called her," Dee replied. "She sounds really bad. Stuffy nose and kinda gross. She doesn't remember who she served, unfortunately." "Ah, okay, well, that's not great. At least we have some names, though. What about your customers, Dee?" The younger woman leaned in. "I don't have anyone who I've sold takeout to, but there is one, lady who's been coming in a lot lately. She has pie here every morning, and sometimes she takes away leftovers, you know? I think Yuli also served her, so while she didn't ask for takeout when I served her, she might have with Yuli." "Okay," I said. "But Yuli doesn't remember that?" "No, bummer, right?" Dee sighed. "What's the woman's name?" I asked. "Apple Pearson." Her name is Apple? Stranger things had happened, and could I be judgmental when my name was Sunny? As in, the fruit? Yeah, I know, right? She's eccentric. Regardless, I wrote down her name. I had my suspects. Now I'd simply cross-reference the mystery journal with my pie list. But did that really count? I ought to talk to everyone, find out whether they had known Vince or been connected to Aunt Rita. Are you all right, Sunny? Dee Dee peered into my face. I'm good, I said. I've got lots of work to do, that's all. Chapter 11. That afternoon, I hunted for my aunt's spare set of keys for the VW Beetle in her dresser. The Sunny Side Up was much quieter than usual, so I decided to head home, grab the mystery journal, rifle through it for more clues, then start my suspect hunt. Fudge barked at me happily, and Bodger meowed. I'm on the case, Bodger, I whispered to the cat, though I didn't dare pet him without his prompting. Don't you worry about a thing. I scratched Fudge behind the ears, then headed out into the sunlight and piled into the Beetle. I rolled down the windows, put my seatbelt on, and sat there for a second. Fudge barked at me from the front yard, but he wasn't propped up against the fence like usual, tongue lolling out of the corner of his mouth and tail wagging. Instead, he sniffed around the side of the cottage. I propped open the mystery journal on the steering wheel, then placed the piece of paper with my list of names next to it. Alexi's name was present on both, as was Detective Garcia's, notably, but Apple Pearson wasn't mentioned in my aunt's note. All right, I murmured, and turned the page. I clicked my ballpoint and started writing. Case number 5, the case of the scorned best friend. Victim name, Vince Domingo. Occupation, chef/baker. Age, mid-30s. Time of death, unsure, around 9 p.m.? Cause of death, poisoning by a mystery lemon meringue pie. Suspect list. Here was the tricky part. I had to distill the lists and figure out who might be a suspect based on evidence from my aunt and from the cafe. She had written down pies and 86, and the more I thought about it, the more convinced I became that Vince's death was related to my aunt's disappearance. Concentrate, Sunny. Nick Talbot, chef at the Sunny Side Up, who would have had access to the pies and the crime scene, and was the one who found the victim's body. But it's not him. There's no way. He was with me for most of the night, and he would have no reason to throw away his life like that. Rita Jackson, currently missing, left behind notes regarding the break-ins at her cottage for me, wanted to talk to me about something important, mentioned the pies in her notes and several names which are listed here. I paused to rub my chest. It hurt to write that about my aunt. Thinking about her not being home or at the cafe or anywhere in sight made bile rise in the back of my throat. But I had to keep my fears under control. She was fine. She had to be fine. And I would find her. Alexei Shaw, written down in Rita's mystery journal as the top name. And he's Russian. And he's one of the people who got takeout lemon meringue pie in the last 3 days. What would his motive have been? I couldn't help worrying over Alexei's nationality because of my ex-husband's past involvement with Russian businessmen. Could that be what the connection was? Surely not. It was paranoia to worry about that at this point. Apple Pearson, a strange woman who'd been hanging out in the Sunny Side Up and ordering a lot of lemon meringue pie lately. Strange feeling about her. As someone who's new to town, could she have known Vince? Not even a real connection there, but still stands out because of the sheer quantity of pie. Gordon from the Hungry Alligator. Connection to Aunt Rita, but not to Vince. Ordered pie from the Sunny Side Up, and that's it? There were other names on the lists. Detective Garcia? What did he have to do with any of this? I scanned the page and shook my head. I had pretty much nothing. None of the suspects made sense. But I had to start somewhere. I just wasn't sure where. After a fruitless lunch, both in the sense that I hadn't eaten anything and I'd uncovered no new clues, I lurked at the coffee bar in the Sunny Side Up, going over the facts in my head. I'd learned my lesson about showing my mystery journals in public a while ago. One never knew who might be watching. Dee Dee and Carl had a full day of shifts, so they worked the few tables we had, stopping to chat and have coffee once in a while. They were a joy to have around, always laughing, joking, and filling the cafe with warmth. If only the locals who usually came in would stop walking by. 3 times today I'd spotted regulars hurrying by the cafe. Mr. Peterson, one of the owners of the antique shop in Worley Street, had practically darted past, holding a hand to the side of his face to avoid making eye contact with me. Jean Norman, usually so bubbly and willing to stop by for a chat, crossed to the other side of the street. And Bill Tarley hadn't returned my wave on his way to the newspaper stand. You'd swear we had rabies, I muttered. Rabies? A woman stood in front of the coffee bar, eyes wide. You have rabies? That's terrible. You know there's no cure for rabies in humans. When were you in contact with the rabid animal? Did they bite you or scratch you? Do you have a fever? You should go get a shot for it, you know. They can still give you a shot if it happened in the last 24 hours. The words tumbled from her dry lips. She licked them nervously, then reached up and tugged on short blonde hair that hung limply either side of a pale, freckled face. Hello, I said. Behind the customer's back, Dee Dee waved at me and pointed toward the woman. That's her, she mouthed. Grapple. I raised an eyebrow at Dee Dee, shaking my head. Grapple, Dee Dee mouthed frantically. Grapple. Nearby, Carl coughed into his fist. Apple, he coughed, then patted his chest. Excuse me. Oh, hello, I said. No, I don't have rabies. I was making a joke. You shouldn't joke about rabies, Apple said, blinking long lashes at me. She wore a flowing tie-dye dress that stopped above her ankles. She was in her 20s, I would have guessed, though it didn't look as if she cared much about her appearance. Rabies is a serious disease. Yes, of course, I said. Over 1 person dies of rabies every year in the United States. Over 1 person? Yes, 2. Approximately 2. This conversation was veering into the realm of the bizarre. Can I get you anything, ma'am? My name is Apple, she said. I'm Sunny, I replied, and extended a hand over the counter. Apple considered my hand like it was a disease. Given the conversation, I kind of got it. Okay. What can I get for you? I asked. I'd like a slice of lemon meringue pie, please. My pulse ticked up a notch. I'm afraid we don't have any of the lemon meringue, I said. Oh, Apple visibly sagged. Oh, I love the lemon meringue. I'm sorry about that, but we had to pull it off the menu. Why? It was so good. Because someone was poisoned recently, I said, opting for the shock factor. And a slice of lemon meringue pie was the vessel that was used for the poisoning. Apple wrinkled up her nose. Oh, you know, poisoning kills over 2.5 million Americans every year. Oh dear, I said. This guy was new to town. It wasn't a great segue, but I had to find a way to press Apple for information that wasn't related to random death statistics. Guy by the name of Vince Domingo. Apple's green eyes widened. Vince? Did you know him? Apple was quiet for a while. Yes, she said in a tiny voice. I wasn't sure what to do with my face all of a sudden. Look shocked or intrigued? One of the suspects had known Vince. How? I asked, blurting it out. He asked me out on a date. He said he wanted to take me out of town to some place that has the best apple pie in the state. But I don't eat apple pie, so I said no. You don't eat apple pie? Carl asked from nearby, as if he couldn't fathom the possibility. What? Dee Dee nudged him, shaking her head, but he shrugged at her. What? It's the best type of pie. Apple glanced at him. Well, I don't eat anything that contains apple. I struggled to find an appropriate reaction to that. So, when he suggested it, naturally I was disgusted. What happened then? I asked. Nothing. He said he'd come up with somewhere else to go, but I never heard back from him. I assumed he lost interest. Apple paled further, as if that was possible. But now I know he's... Oh my gosh. I can't believe it. She didn't sound that astounded. I'm sorry to have broken the news. When did he ask you out? I don't know. On the weekend sometime? I can't remember exactly when. She was lying, because Vince hadn't arrived in Parfait until Monday. Would you like coffee? I asked, changing the topic but watching her with interest. A slice of cheesecake? Yeah, the cheesecake. Apple drifted off and sat down, tapping her fingernails on the tablecloth while she waited. I made quick work of ringing up her order without any mistakes. A miracle if I considered how bad I'd been at this type of thing a couple of months ago. I brought it to her and accepted cash for the takeout order. Once she was gone, Dee Dee came over. I bet it's her, she said. She knew him. Maybe, I replied. But I didn't have the evidence or the answers. Yet. Chapter 12. Are you sure? I asked, standing just inside the kitchen doorway, my arms folded. You can sleep on my aunt's sofa again, Nick. I couldn't bring myself to sleep in my aunt's bed and give him the guest room. It would feel like giving up hope that Aunt Rita would come back. Positive, Nick said. I had a call from Detective Garcia. Apparently, they're done searching the place. Anyway, I asked Amelia to peek through the windows. They turned everything upside down and put it back weird, whatever that means. Nick sounded more exhausted than angry. I'm sorry, I said. That sucks lemons. Don't even mention lemons to me. He held up a hand, but there was a sparkle of humor in his bright blue eyes. Thanks for your hospitality, Sunny. I don't know what I would have done without you. I offered him a smile that didn't quite reach my soul. My aunt had been missing for 2 days. Nick's friend had been dead for 1. The longer this went on, the higher the stakes became. Surely Detective Garcia would see sense now. He would put out the silver alert, as he called it. It's going to be okay, Sunny, Nick said. They don't have anything on me, I'm pretty sure, and you'll hear from your aunt soon. I wished I could have bottled his positivity and taken it with me. I brought my phone out of my pocket and flicked through my contacts until I found Garcia's number. I hit dial and backed out of the Sunny Side Up's kitchen, pressing the phone to my ear until it grew hot. This is Garcia, he answered. Detective? It's Sonny Charles, I replied. I'm not sure if you have my number saved. He sighed. What do you want, Miss Charles? I sucked in air. Be strong. Commanding. You can do this. I was not the cowed housewife of Damon Stokes any longer. Hello, Miss Charles? I want you to issue a silver alert for my aunt, I said. She still hasn't been in contact, and I can't reach her. I don't have time for this, Detective Garcia replied. There's no evidence that she's missing. She's taken her things. She's been in contact with you to tell you that she's on vacation. I don't care. The words tumbled from me, so loud that Dee Dee jumped at one of the tables she'd been clearing. It was late afternoon, and the Sunny Side Up had closed. "You're not seeing sense. Detective, this isn't like her, and if you don't start taking things seriously—" "I am in the middle of an investigation," Detective Garcia snapped. "A real crime has been committed, and unless you have reason to believe that your aunt was a part of it, I don't want to hear it. Good night, Miss Charles." The line went dead, and I tore the phone away from my ear and glared at the screen. How dare he? How dare he be this stubborn? She's been missing for over a day. But he didn't see it that way. He thought I was paranoid or interfering or... My phone buzzed and a name flashed on the screen. Baking Biddies. It was the Baking Biddies club number. "Hello?" I answered. "Senator Charles," a woman said, her voice nasal and high-pitched. I gritted my teeth. "Sunny," I said. "My name is not Senator." Through clerical error or evil design, someone at the Baking Biddies had decided I would forever be known by a made-up name. "You have been summoned. Pins compulsory. The Mangelli estate." And then she hung up. "Great. Just what I needed," I murmured. "What's going on?" Dee Dee came over, removing her apron with its cutesy cartoon egg on the front. "There's a Baking Biddies meeting tonight at Primrose's house," I said. "Oh, for the event, the craftathon. Everyone's talking about it," Dee Dee replied. "Or they were before the murder happened." Right. I didn't particularly want to go, but it was a good place to be. I could pick up on rumors about the murder. Baking Biddies was the most exclusive club in Parfait, and that meant they had the most exclusive gossip. It was worth a shot. At this point, I was desperate. The Baking Biddies meeting was held in Primrose Mangelli's upstairs living room. Though, could it be called a living room when it was the size of a ballroom and didn't have a TV? The women who were part of the club sat in uncomfortable antique chairs, dressed appropriately in neat blouses and slacks, Baking Biddies pins over their hearts. "You'll be assigned your positions for the event on Saturday," Primrose said, resplendent in a sweeping ball gown that didn't suit the occasion. Of course, no one would point that out. Primrose was the new head of the Baking Biddies, and she was strangely threatening for a tiny squat woman with zero muscle mass. I tried to pay attention to what was being said. The event was important, and Aunt Rita was the one who'd helped me get into this place. She'd twisted arms to get my ban lifted. "You'll be sent a text message with the details of your assignment," Primrose finished. "And you will perform as per the quality that is expected of all Baking Biddies members." She scanned the room, her haughty gaze sending a ripple through the gathered members. "There are refreshments at the back of the room," Primrose finished with a clap of her hands. "Dismissed." The Baking Biddies members leapt from their chairs and rushed toward the back of the room, as if the very command had made them hungry and thirsty. Primrose watched imperiously until I was the last one left. "Not hungry, Sunny?" Primrose asked. "Not really, Miss Mangelli." "And why's that?" I considered keeping my silence and not telling her anything, but what would that help? I told her about Aunt Rita and the murder next door. Primrose lit up at the prospect of gossip, but the news that I hadn't heard from Aunt Rita dampened that excitement. "You haven't heard from her, have you?" I asked. "No, Sunny, I'm afraid not. Not since Sunday." "Did she say anything to you about pies?" "Pies?" Primrose wriggled her bulbous nose from left to right. "Nothing about pies, no, but she did mention that she would be busy for the next few days." "She did?" Busy how? Well, she didn't give me any details, I'm afraid. I chewed on the inside of my cheek. Was Detective Garcia right? Was my aunt on a vacation or mystery adventure and she had actually let me know through that choppy email? Have some tea, Sunny, Primrose said. Go on. I'm sure Rita will appear in good time. But I didn't buy it. Chapter 13. I hadn't eaten a thing at the meeting, and the tea I'd forced myself to gulp down had left me queasy. I arrived back at the cottage to find Fudge with his paws on the front fence and Nick in his yard. He waved at me as I got out of the car and into the purple dusk. The scent of salt from the ocean, hidden by sand and scrub across the road, greeted me. Hey, I called to Nick, heading over to pet Fudge. He whined and licked my fingers. How was the meeting? Nick asked. I ruffled Fudge's fur, then joined Nick in his front yard where he was checking the flower beds. It was fine, I guess, I said, stifling a yawn. I'm having trouble sleeping lately, though, so I guess that doesn't help. Between my aunt and the murder... Nick glanced back at his quaint cottage with light spilling from the front windows and onto the front porch. I know what you mean. One good thing came of it, though, I said. I think. What was it? Well, apparently, Aunt Rita told Primrose Mangelli that she'd be unreachable for a few days, I said. Oh? That's good. Maybe she's not missing then. She's just gone on another of her adventures. Mildred didn't seem to think so. Mildred also thinks that the cookies she gives people are delicious, Nick replied, pointing at me with a pair of gardening gloves. Fair point, I laughed, and it was the first time I'd felt mirth in a while. It would be a relief to think that my aunt was safe somewhere, causing mischief and mayhem rather than in danger. But it can't be true. She left me that letter. She wanted me to come see her. I'm watching you, and I can literally see your thoughts on your face. Relief and then fear. Confusion, Nick said. Come on, Sunny. Come inside and have something to eat. I promise I won't poison you. Don't even say that, Nick. Sorry, I'm so tired I think my sensitivity chip has malfunctioned. I followed Nick into his house, removing the baking biddies pin from the breast pocket of my blouse and slipping it into my purse for safekeeping. Woe betide any member of the club who lost their pin. Nick led me into the kitchen and patted a stool in front of his kitchen island. It was a spacious kitchen, with all the modern elements a chef would require to do what he did best. The rest of the house wasn't as fancy, but Nick had started paying more attention to the minor details now that he was single. Single, eh? I forced that thought out of my head. What do you feel like eating? Nick asked. Now that I was in the comfort of his kitchen, with its polished countertops and view of his backyard, no longer a mess thanks to hours of gardening on Nick's part, my appetite had returned. I don't know, whatever you feel like making? Pasta? Sounds good to me. Quick and easy, right? Sure, I've got a recipe for a leek carbonara I've been meaning to try out, Nick replied. Glass of wine? White if you have it. I shifted in my seat, but the insistent itch to be up and moving got the better of me. Say, Nick? Uh-huh. He was tying on his apron. Do you mind if I take a look around in the room? He stiffened for a couple of seconds. His shoulders relaxed, and he released a forced chuckle. Yeah, why not? They're done in there. I'll admit I haven't been back in since they left. I didn't want to... I don't know. It just felt weird. Some of Vince's things are still there. They didn't take everything into evidence. Maybe they didn't think they had to. I nodded. I can go in there on my own. You don't have to come with me. Good. I didn't plan on it. He laughed, this time genuinely. I accepted a glass of wine from him, took a sip for much-needed fortification, then slipped off my stool. A flash of the other night came back to me, of arriving to find Nick on the phone, panicked. The guest room was situated in exactly the same spot as the one in my aunt's cottage, and the door was closed. I tried the doorknob and found it unlocked. The door creaked open. Creepy, I muttered. The light was off. Relax. It's a crime scene, not a haunted hotel, for heaven's sake. I found the switch, and yellow light flooded the space. The mattress was bare. The police had removed the sheets from the bed, and a lot of the contents of the room, it seemed, but there were shreds of evidence that Vince had been there. An empty bag in the corner that appeared to have been dusted with powder of some sort. Why wouldn't they take that? A lot of the crime scene investigation process was unfamiliar to me. If things in Parfait continued as they'd been in the past few months, I'd have to start researching this type of thing. Let's not get too ahead of ourselves here. I walked over to the bed. The bedside table was empty of everything except the lamp, and the 2 drawers held nothing but air. I moved around the room, looking at everything, curiously, hoping that there would be something to find. It's empty, I muttered. No luck. Still, it didn't hurt to check under the bed. I peered underneath it, scooching as close as I dared, highly aware that a man had died right above my head. What was it with me and climbing under beds lately? Nothing. I shifted the bedside table aside and checked underneath that, too. A glimmer of silver caught my eye. My stomach did a somersault. There was something wedged between the floorboards here. A little silver object. I squirmed my fingers over it and felt cool metal, but no amount of pinching and prying could get it loose. It wasn't an obvious find. "Hey, Nick," I called. "Yeah? Do you have tweezers?" "Tweezers? Why do you sound so muffled?" Footsteps approached the doorway. Nick snorted. "What on earth are you doing?" "I found something," I said. "Got any tweezers?" "Hold on. There might be an old pair of jasmines floating around." He disappeared from view and returned a few minutes later with a pair of tweezers. "Thanks." I accepted them from him and used them to pinch the object. Man, it's really wedged in there. Hold on, it's coming out. The object wrenched free from the boards, and I held it aloft. It's a ring. A ring? A man's wedding ring. Platinum band, well worn on the inside with what looked like an inscription. "For my dear Vince." I read the words out loud. "For Vince? What?" Nick asked. "Are you serious? Can I see?" "Sure." I handed the ring over. He turned it over on his palm. "That is so weird. I had no idea he was married. Didn't ever see him with this on." "And he was in the habit of asking women out," I replied. "He asked Apple Pearson on a date." "Apple? Someone named Apple? Who names their kid Apple? I mean, apart from Gwyneth Paltrow." "I don't know. Maybe her mom had some type of break with reality after childbirth." "Mean. Not that I can talk. I wonder." "What?" I got up and dusted off my slacks and blouse. "I wonder if this is relevant, Nick. Think about it. Vince comes out here on vacation for a couple of weeks and is acting like a single man. He's removed his ring and sort of wedged it into the floorboards, and now he's dead. Could we have a scorned wife on our hands? One that followed him to Parfait?" Chapter 14. "You really think this could be the answer?" Nick chopped leeks in the kitchen at a furious pace, glancing up at me after finishing each leek. "That his wife would come after him?" "Well, in these cases, the cops usually look at the spouse first. There's always a motive for murder, whether it's money or love or jealousy or passion or whatever." Nick had graciously agreed to lend me his laptop, and I sat at the kitchen island with my glass of wine, typing away. The chef had also put on relaxing music that tinkled through the kitchen, the type of smooth jazz that would have played in a cocktail bar, and I was here for it. It helped me think, oddly enough, and the few sips of wine I'd taken had relaxed me. "Okay," I said. "Vince Domingo. Find anything?" "Oh, yeah. I found a few of his social media profiles. Here's his Get Up profile page." I opened it. Clearly, he wasn't too concerned about online privacy. This thing is wide open for public viewing. Wow. Nick put down his knife and circled the kitchen island. He stopped next to me, wiping his hands off on his apron. The profile was full of images of Vince on holiday with a lot of women. Different women in almost every photo. Most of them were friendly photos, snaps that had been taken while he was out at dinner, and a few were of him in chef's whites meeting people who had tried his food. "Looks like he's had a lot of girlfriends," I said, cycling through the images. Many of them overlapping. "I had no idea." Nick pursed his lips. "What?" "Just, if I'd known he was that type of guy, well, I don't want to be harsh, but if I'd known, I wouldn't have invited him here. I'm a firm believer in associating with people who make good moral choices, most of the time." "Does that include people who stick to the fringes of the law when poking their noses in active investigations?" "An exception to the rule." He slung an arm around my shoulders and squeezed me to his side. The hug filled me with warmth and butterflies. "Okay." I cleared my throat, trying to refocus. "So, let's see here." I tapped on Vince's contact and basic information on his profile page. "Yeah, he's married. Look right there. Married to Shayna Domingo." "Oh, man." Nick palmed his forehead. "That's bad." I clicked on the link that took me through to Shayna's profile next. Her profile was more private than Vince's, but I could glean a few things from it. Namely, that she was in love with Vince. There were recent photos of them together, arm in arm, smiling at the camera with a gorgeous mountain view in the background. "Oh, man, that's horrible. I wonder if she knows." Nick went back to his leaks. "If she murdered him, then yeah, I'd say it's fair to assume she knows." "But we don't know if she did." "No, but I say we call her." "How?" Nick asked. "We don't have her number. I didn't even know she existed until you brought her profile up." "Hold on a sec." I opened a new tab and typed Shayna Domingo into the search bar. I found a few of her professional profiles on other platforms and opened them. There, that's her cell phone number. She's a real estate agent in Miami. That's got to be a lucrative business to be in. Maybe, but I'm pretty sure money isn't the motive here. I took a breath, reminding myself that this was for my aunt and for Nick. I had mild social anxiety in crowded rooms or places, but that anxiety extended to speaking to people on the phone, especially strangers. I brought my phone out, typed in the number, and hit dial before I could second-guess my actions. "Hello?" Shayna's voice was gruff, though her picture showed a short, pretty brunette with a winning smile. "Who's that?" Hello?" "Yeah?" "My name is Sunny Charles," I said. "I'm calling about your husband, Vince." Man, what now? Are you at the cops? Because I'm done talking about this. For the last time, I'm on the other side of the state, and Vince and I were estranged. We hadn't spoken in months, dude, so just leave me alone. Months? That had to be a lie. There was an image of her on her social media page with him. "Ma'am, I've got your Get Up page open, and you were tagged in a picture with him a few weeks ago." A long pause on the other end of the line. "Look," she said, "I don't know who you are, and I'm not going to talk to you without a lawyer present. Got it?" "Oh, I'm not a cop," I squeaked. "I'm a concerned citizen. I wanted to find out if you knew anything about—" The wife hung up. Went well, I take it? Nick was in front of the burners now, a pot of water bubbling away as he arranged his homemade tagliatelle on the counter. I shrugged and tried her phone again, but she didn't answer, and I didn't blame her. At least I'd gotten information out of her. That Garcia was interested in her as a suspect, and that she claimed she had an alibi because she was on the other side of the state. Or so she said. I wonder if... I was interrupted by a knock at Nick's front door. Chapter 15. I'll get it. You relax, Nick. He was so stressed he deserved a break from the madness. I slipped off my stool and minced through the entry hall. Who's there? I called. It was better to be safe in Parfait these days. It's Dee Dee, the server replied, her voice squeaky. Can I come in? It's kind of creepy out here. It feels like I'm being watched. Hadn't Dee Dee been the one who dismissed my fears of being watched at the start of my time in Parfait? Gosh, recent events had affected her, and I despised that. I let her in, smiling at her presence, and she threw her arms around me. I was worried about you. Dee Dee squeezed me tight, enveloping me in her petal-scented perfume. I knocked on your door, but you didn't answer, and Fudge was quiet too, so I wasn't sure what was going on. Everything's fine. Come on through to the kitchen. Nick's making pasta. I shut the door, and Dee Dee looped her arm through mine. In the kitchen, Nick got out a can of soda for Dee Dee and set it out on the kitchen island. Staying for dinner? He asked. There's plenty to go around. Oh man, it smells good in here. Carbonara, he replied. Okay, sure. Dee Dee plopped down on one of the stools at the island. I haven't had pasta in ages. Then you're in for a treat, I replied. We both are. Dee Dee pointed to the open laptop on the glistening kitchen island. What's this? I explained to her what we'd found in the guest room and how the call with the wife had gone. Dee Dee squirmed in her chair, excitement practically bursting from her every pore. That's so cool. It's like proper sleuth work. I want to help. What can I do to help? She glanced from me to Nick and back again, her enthusiasm infectious. I sighed. I honestly don't know. I'm trying to figure out a few things. Like the connection between Vince's murder and Aunt Rita's absence, if there is one, I said. That's the most important part. I spoke to Primrose from the Baking Biddies, and she mentioned that my aunt said she'd be busy. But that doesn't necessarily mean she would be out of reach. I still think something doesn't add up. I agree, Dee Dee said right away. Rita didn't say anything to me, and the last time she went on a cruise, we all knew what was going on. Right, Nick? True, he said, as he scraped the leeks from his chopping board into a pan on the stove. Heavenly smells drifted over, frying leeks and garlic, and my mouth watered. If only I could figure out what happened after Aunt Rita left the house, and why she knew about the pies being poisoned. There are a couple of scenarios to consider here, I said, lifting my fingers. First, that Vince was the intended target, that the pie was left specifically for him to try, and that my aunt actually has gone on vacation. Dee Dee shrugged. That's cap. Cap? It means that's unlikely or untrue, Dee Dee laughed. Young people talk. Nick shifted the pan atop the stove. Second, I continued, Vince wasn't the intended target and Nick was, and Aunt Rita is actually missing. Or the cases aren't connected, Dee Dee put in. Or that. It was so frustrating. I felt on the brink of tugging my hair. All I can do is follow the leads that are most obvious, and the notes that my aunt left me in her journal. Right. Dee Dee tapped on the laptop's pad and started fiddling, checking through the profiles of both Vince and his wife. I didn't stop her. She might see something I hadn't. Huh. The noise had come from Nick. "What is it?" I asked. "I just remembered something," he said. "I woke up early as I always do on Monday morning. The morning my aunt went missing." I chose to believe that was the case. The relief from my conversation with Primrose had been short-lived, and I white-knuckle gripped my self-control. If I let go, I would panic and take to the streets, yelling Aunt Rita's name. "Yeah, I got up early and I was in the kitchen having coffee. It was probably around 6:30 a.m. "Okay?" Nick frowned, pressing fingers to his creased brow. "I heard noise from next door, from your cottage. I figured it was, Rita getting into her car before she headed out to the cafe. It was like a bang, like a car door slamming, but maybe a little louder." Heat flooded my veins, and I rose. "But now that we know she didn't get into her car, well, that doesn't make sense, does it? I've been so caught up in the whole Vince thing that I didn't think about it. Sorry, Sunny, I know that's not—" "Can you pinpoint where it came from?" I asked. "No, I guess probably from the front yard, or the area closest to where she parks her car. I didn't look out of the window or anything because—" I was off down the hall before he could finish his sentence. Of course. Why hadn't I checked the front yard before? If my aunt had disappeared, there might be evidence of it. But I'd figured that if someone had abducted her, it would have happened out on the street where she'd been walking to the cafe. I rushed down the sidewalk and clattered through the front gate into my aunt's front yard. Fudge perked up on the top step. "Hey, boy," I said. "I'm looking for evidence of—" The words had barely left my mouth when Fudge launched from the steps. Instead of coming over and covering me in kisses, he bolted around the side of the cottage and stopped next to a section of bushes tucked against the whitewashed wall. I sucked in a breath. Another thing I'd ignored lately. Fudge's behavior. He'd acted strangely when I'd left the house earlier. Instead of leaping up to wag his tail and say goodbye, he'd been sniffing around in the bushes. I could have kicked myself for not realizing it earlier. I joined Fudge at the side of the house, where light from the porch cast slanting beams over the ground. "What is it, boy?" He barked, nosing around in the bushes. "Sunny!" Dee Dee jogged down the sidewalk. "What is it? What did you find?" "Nothing yet. May I borrow your phone, please?" "Sure." Dee Dee unlocked the screen and handed it over. I used the flashlight on her phone to light the bushes. Nothing jumped out at me immediately, but Fudge was insistent. He whined and pawed at the ground. "Okay, boy, I've got it." I parted the branches of the bush. My aunt's lipstick, her favorite shade of pink, lay in the soil. It had been trampled. Next to that was her driver's license. She would never have let these two things drop out of her purse, and she would never have been in the beds here unless there was a good reason for it. But what? My insides twisted into knots. She had been abducted. I was sure of it now. And it had happened right here, right outside the cottage, while I was asleep inside. "I need to call Garcia," I said, shaking all over. Chapter 16. "I told you," I said, "that she was missing. I told you." I couldn't keep the anger out of my voice. Detective Garcia stood on the front porch with me while police officers combed the garden for more evidence. I had put Fudge inside with the TV on for company, but he was in the living room window, nose pressed to the pane, watching. Bodger sat beside him, black paws placed neatly, his ears perked up as if he could understand the conversation. Garcia ran fingers through his wavy brown hair. "I know," he said, "but until I had evidence that—" "It should have been enough. She's been gone for 2 days. 2 days!"
You should have issued that alert the minute I told you something fishy was going on. But you're so darn stubborn you refuse to listen to—
Ms. Charles, I understand you're frustrated, but there's no need to take your temper out on me. It won't help me find your aunt any faster. I squidged my eyes closed. I have things you need for your investigation, both for the murder and for my aunt being missing. What? I opened my eyes and told him about the ring and the mystery journal. I had written my case notes in it, but I'd have to start again. Transfer them over to another of my mystery journals. I couldn't withhold them from the detective when it would help him find Aunt Rita faster. Detective Garcia didn't bother lecturing me about not telling him sooner. For once, he was in the wrong, and he seemed appropriately humbled and exhausted. What was with this guy? And why had his name been on my aunt's list in her book? I'd appreciate it if you could fetch both those items for me. We touched the ring, I said, so don't think you'll get any useful evidence from it. It had been a silly thing to do, but in the heat of the moment, Nick had placed the ring on his palm. If there had been DNA evidence, he'd likely contaminated it. Idiot, Sunny. You should have known better. Fine, he said. If there's a mix of DNA or partial prints, we'll eliminate you both since you found the evidence. I hurried over to Nick's and fetched the ring from the countertop, lifting it with the tweezers again. Nick had finished the dinner and taken plates out, but had moved to his porch to watch the activity outside, as had most of the neighbors in my aunt's street. I delivered the ring and journal to Detective Garcia. Thank you, he said, overseeing as they were placed in evidence bags and marked by another officer. This'll be useful. I hope so. I glared at him for a couple minutes longer, but the detective was unaffected. I have to get to work, Miss Charles. Mind if we take a look around inside the house? Go for it, I said. Do whatever you have to. Just find my aunt. Nick, Dee Dee, and I gathered in his living room, sitting with our plates of pasta on our laps, the TV on, but the sound muted. I picked up my food, as did Nick, but Dee Dee, who was a nervous eater, had wolfed down hers. The cops were still busy next door, though Detective Garcia had promised to come by and let me know when I could return. Fudge lay on the floor at my feet, occasionally whining, and Bodger had deigned to exit his kitty carrier and sit on one of Nick's leather armchairs, surveying the room like a king presiding over his court. Why didn't I check sooner? I whispered, dragging my fork through the perfectly al dente strands of tagliatelle. I should have known. It's not your fault. If I had told you about what I'd heard sooner, Nick said, then you would have known something was up. Seriously, you guys. Dee Dee put her empty plate on the coffee table. Get real. This is all down to Detective Garcia. He totally should have come over to the cottage the second Sunny said something was wrong. But he didn't. It's his fault. I bit down on the inside of my cheek, hard, drawing a coppery taste onto my tongue. Who would have done this? Why? Whoever it is, Garcia will find them, Sunny. He hasn't failed yet, Nick said. With Sunny's help, he hasn't. Dee Dee's face was open and full of trust and faith in me. I put my plate aside and fetched my purse from the entry hall, removing my phone from it on the way back. I have pictures of my aunt's mystery journal. I want to go over what she wrote again, in case something stands out, you know? Sure. Nick set his plate on the coffee table, too. We all squished closer together on the sofa. I opened the image of the page on my phone screen, and the cryptic messages reappeared. The names, the words, and the images of the blocky thing and a circle at the bottom. Wait a second, I said. That circle. What about it? Dee Dee asked. The circle, it's a ring, right? It's got to be. It can't be a coincidence that we found Vince's ring on the floor at the crime scene, and my aunt put this in her mystery journal. Am I crazy here? Nick didn't answer. It could be, Dee Dee said. A ring. And then she wrote about the pies and wanting to remove them from the Sunny Side Up's menu. That's what the number 86 was for. Yeah, but she didn't tell me she wanted to remove them. She mentioned it as a maybe, but she didn't give me a direct order, Nick said. Why wouldn't she have called to let me know that? Or messaged? I don't know. Whatever the reason was, she thought she had to get down to the cafe quickly on Monday morning. But she'd never made it. Someone had stopped her. Maybe because Aunt Rita had figured out that they wanted to get rid of Vince? But how had Aunt Rita known about Vince's murder before he'd even arrived in Parfait? And why hadn't she told anyone about it before Monday? And what on earth did the break-in at her cottage a few months ago have to do with the murder? Or a ring, or... It's all so confusing, I said. You'll figure it out. Dee Dee gave me a side hug. I know you will, Sunny. And we'll be here to help you every step of the way. Chapter 17. Case number 5. The Case of the Scorned Best Friend. Victim name, Vince Domingo. Occupation, chef/baker. Age, mid-30s. Time of death, unsure. Around 9 p.m.? Cause of death, poisoning by a mystery lemon meringue pie. Suspect list. Nick Talbot, chef at the Sunny Side Up who would have had access to the pies and the crime scene, and was the one who found the victim's body. But it's not him. There's no way. He was with me for most of the night, and he would have no reason to throw away his life like that. Rita Jackson, currently missing, left behind notes regarding the break-ins at her cottage for me. Wanted to talk to me about something important. Mentioned the pies in her notes and several names which are listed here. Ring connection? Definitely taken or abducted right outside the cottage. Alexei Shaw, written down in Rita's mystery journal as the top name, and he's Russian, and he's one of the people who got takeout lemon meringue pie in the last 3 days. What would his motive have been? Apple Pearson, a strange woman who'd been hanging out in the Sunny Side Up and ordering a lot of lemon meringue pie lately. Crossed out, strange feeling about her. As someone who's new to town, could she have known Vince? Not even a real connection there, but still stands out because of the sheer quantity of pie. Knew the victim, had planned on dating him but didn't go through with it. Gordon from the Hungry Alligator, connection to Aunt Rita but not to Vince, ordered pie from the Sunny Side Up, and that's it? Shayna Domingo, wife of the deceased, claimed she was on the other side of Florida when the murder had occurred and that they were estranged. Yet there are photos on her social media profile that show otherwise. NB. Need to flesh out this list more. I feel like there is definitely someone missing. Maybe even a few people. Clues list. Vince Domingo dated around. Potential motive for wife to murder him? Ring found under Vince's nightstand. Placed there on purpose? Dropped there? Aunt Rita's clue page. Pies. 86. Drawing of some weird blocky thing. Drawing of a ring. The letters RRDS. What could they stand for? How did Aunt Rita know about a murder before it happened? There are too many coincidences between what she wrote down and what's happening with the case. Lipstick and driver's license found outside the cottage, but there are no other tracks. I paused, my pen nib hovering over the fresh page in my mystery journal. what I'd just written down was a good point. There were no other tracks in the garden, and there was no evidence that my aunt had been piled into a car and driven away. So where had the person who had attacked her taken her? "Excuse me," a woman said. I jolted back to the present in the Sunny Side Up Café. It was morning, and the tables were busier today after the news that Aunt Rita had gone missing. My throat closed at the thought, and I forced a half-smile. It was Jean Norman, a regular who had finally decided to stop by. She offered me a grin in return. "How are you today, Sunny?" Her voice was loud, carrying through the interior of the cafe. "I'm fine, thank you, Jean. It's good to see you again." "You'll have to forgive me for keeping my distance," she said, letting out a foghorn blast of laughter. "You can understand why, I'm sure. Seems like this cafe has been the center of trouble ever since you came to town." Jean always said what was on her mind. "Sorry, no offense meant." "None taken," I said. "What can I get you this morning?" "A cup of coffee to go with some honey in it, if you don't mind." Jean's orders tended toward oddity. "And a dollop of ice cream on top?" "Sure. Coming right up." I set to work on her order. Jean read a copy of the Parfait platter while she waited, calmly turning the pages. I caught sight of the headline and nearly dropped the scoop of ice cream. Poisoning in Parfait. Arsenic to blame. I sucked in a breath. Arsenic was the poison? How on earth had the Parfait platter found that out? Had there been a press conference I wasn't aware of? "Say, do you mind if I take a look at that?" I slid Jean's completed order onto the countertop, placing a plastic spoon beside it in case she wanted to eat the ice cream off the top. "Sure, you keep it, honey." Jean accepted her cup, paid for her order, and left. I scanned the newspaper article, but there wasn't anything other than the news that the poison of choice had been arsenic. It was like something out of an Agatha Christie novel, for heaven's sake. Who would have had access to arsenic? The Sunny Side Up's door opened and shut again, and Millie from the shelter next door traipsed up to the counter. "There you are, Sunny dear," she said, patting her limp gray curls. "I heard the news. You poor dear. How are you holding up?" I folded the newspaper and put it down. "I've been better, Millie. I'm trying to keep everything together, you know, while my aunt's gone." "She'll be back. They'll find her," Millie said, raising her chin. "You know our Rita wouldn't go down without a fight. I pity the person who tried to take her. Probably gave them a good beating in return." "I don't pity them at all." "Oh, I know. It was a figure of speech, dear." Millie paused. "Would you like to come sit with me for a while? We can talk." I hesitated, then offered her a nod. I fixed us 2 coffees and went over to join Millie at her favorite booth against the cheery blue wall. Millie accepted her coffee and took a few sips. "That's great. Good heavens, I love the coffee here. The cookies could use a little work, but the coffee, delicious." I didn't have the energy to dispute the cookie claim. "How are things with you, Millie? How's Alexei?" It was a good opportunity to pick Millie's brain about Alexei and his behavior lately. He was one of the names on my aunt's list, and that meant I had reason to suspect him. "Oh dear, he's not good. Not good at all. Things have been terrible lately. Katie broke up with him." "Oh no." That was unfortunate. Alexei had seemed happy in his relationship with the shy assistant at the animal shelter. "Why?" "I think he took too long to propose to her, honestly," Millie said. "I warned him about it. Katie is the type of woman who likes to be looked after. She wanted to get married, and he hesitated, though I have no idea why. You know how men are, dear. They want to have their cake and eat it too." I knew all too well what men could be like. At least, some men, like my ex-husband. I refused to believe Nick was cut from the same cloth. "Oh, I'm sorry to hear it, Millie. I know you were excited about their relationship." "I feel foolish," Millie continued, stirring sugar into her coffee and sipping it again. "I thought I'd be getting a grandchild soon, and instead, I'm stuck with an unhappy Alexi and a moody Katie. But listen to me talking about my problems. You've got bigger things to worry about." "Well, it's nice to hear your news, Millie, even though it's not positive. It helps me not to dwell on what's going on here."
"Right. Yes, of course."
"What else have you been up to this week?" I asked, trying to work out a way to find an alibi for Alexi on Monday morning without alerting Millie to the question. "How was the start of your week?"
"Oh, fine, just fine. With everything going on with Katie and Alexi, I've been largely alone at home and in the shelter. I mean, they work there during the day, but they sort of drift in and out. Sometimes I swear it's like I'm not even living with them."
"That's terrible." In part because I couldn't ascertain an alibi for Alexi for Monday morning. It sounded as if Millie could barely keep track of him. I let Millie talk and tried to pay attention to the conversation, but it was a struggle. I couldn't help but wonder what Alexi had been up to of late. It was time to get proactive. Chapter 18. Later that evening. I had already sent the rest of the staff in the Sunny Side Up home, switched off all the lights, and locked up the place. That special time of the evening had arrived when the boardwalk came alive with families heading toward the Hungry Alligator and folks strolling along the beach, enjoying the last warmth of the day. The waves washed the shore, and the sun had already dipped past the horizon. A soothing atmosphere of happiness, a small-town comforting feeling that should have sank into my bones but was blocked by a patina of fear. I sat on the bench across from the Sunny Side Up, purse over my shoulder, my aunt's car keys cutting into my palm, and watched the animal shelter. I had witnessed Alexi enter it a half an hour ago. He had to come out soon, right? And when he did, I'd have to follow him. The first time I'd tried that, what felt like an eternity ago but was a few short months, I had failed miserably. He'd turned around and asked me why I was tailing him. But this time, I'd be more careful. I'd learned a thing or two in my time here. That was what I kept telling myself anyway. You can do this. It wasn't about being able to do it anymore. I had to do it. The lights were on in the animal shelter, the glass front door allowing squares of illumination to escape and slant across the sidewalk. "Come on," I murmured. "Come on." A hand landed on my shoulder. I let out a shriek and scrambled off the bench. "Whoa, sorry, I didn't mean to scare you, Sunny." It was Gordon, the silver fox who owned the Hungry Alligator. The last man on my suspect list, but one I wanted to talk to. "Hi," I managed, rubbing the spot over my heart. I returned to my seat, glancing at the shelter, and he joined me. "How are you holding up?" he asked. I shrugged. "I've been meaning to catch up with you about Rita. Well, shoot, it's horrible what's going on around here lately." I didn't know what to say to him. Honestly, I kind of wanted him to go away since I had my eye on Alexi at the moment. It was silly to suspect Alexi because he'd come from Russia, but I couldn't shake that bias. And I didn't have another suspect apart from the wife who wasn't around and Apple who had been in the cafe today asking for cherry pie. I doubted Apple would hang around if she was the murderer. It was all so cloudy, so obscure. Why couldn't my aunt have left clearer clues? "Sunny?" Gordon touched a hand to my shoulder again. "Are you okay?" "No," I replied. "I'm very much not okay. My aunt is gone. Someone was murdered next door, and I'm almost convinced that my past has something to do with it." "Your past?" "Never mind." Only those closest to me, and Garcia, knew the truth about Damon. I wasn't about to go blurting out my whole sob story to Gordon. I want to help Sunny, in whatever way I can. Rita's special. Yeah, she is. She's amazing. I looked over at him. No matter how much I tried, I couldn't picture him being the one who'd done something to her. When last did you see my aunt? Saturday evening, he replied, when y'all stopped by to grab a bite to eat. Did she seem strange to you? Say anything to you about pies? Pies? Gordon considered it. No, nothing about pies, and nothing strange either. She was her usual friendly self. And you haven't heard from her since then? Well, let me think for a second. I let him think and watched the animal shelter. Shadows moved around inside it. Would Alexi appear soon? Nope, I didn't hear from her. Not really. But she did try to call me early on Monday morning. She did? What did she say? Nothing. I missed the call. She didn't leave me a message either. My throat constricted. She called you. Have you told Detective Garcia about this? He's the one handling her case. I did, yeah, this morning. Showed him the call. Okay, that's something at least. If Aunt Rita had tried to call Gordon, it might have been for information. Did that mean that not all the names on the list were suspects? But what could she have wanted to talk to Gordon about? I could only think that it would be related to the pies since he was in the food industry. And what about Vince? The guy who died? He asked. No, I didn't know him. Sorry. Never met him. Didn't come into the restaurant. Sorry I can't be of more help. The front door of the animal shelter opened and Alexi emerged, slipping on a light coat. I rose, adrenaline shooting through my limbs. Sunny? It's fine, Gordon. Thank you. I have to go. But, Sunny, wait, I wanted to ask... I blocked out the rest of the sentence and took off walking, holding my purse to my side and keeping my head low. I remained on the opposite side of the street to Alexi. I didn't want to take the chance that he might look up and catch sight of me. But no, Alexi was lost in his own world this evening. He nearly bumped into an old man walking his dog. Didn't even apologize and kept muttering to himself, shaking his head and stopping to gesture. What's that about? I followed Alexi along several streets, winding into the suburbs and away from my aunt's side of town, where the cottages sat along dirt roads adjacent to the beach. The deeper we went into town, the easier it would be for him to spot me following, but I kept my breathing even, thankful that I'd opted for white tennis shoes today rather than kitten heels. Less noise. Alexi entered the small front yard of a house across the street. He walked onto the front porch and stopped, talking to himself again. It was strange to see such a large, burly man clearly having a crisis of conscience. Or was there another reason? I crossed the road and hid behind a tree peeking from the concrete. The front door of the house opened and Katie appeared. She folded her arms, red hair tied up in a high ponytail and her usually timid attitude gone. Told you, I don't want to see you again. Please, Katie, Alexi said, voice gravelly deep. I don't want to do anything that is not good for us. This is good for us. You have to see that. My cheeks heated. I'd expected to catch Alexi up to no good. But this was a private conversation between lovers. I couldn't cross the street now. I would be seen. But I'm not ready to... Alexi, until you get down on one knee and present me with the ring, you and I are through. That's all there is to it. Do you understand? Alexi fell silent, and I couldn't help feeling sorry for him. Sounded like Katie was the one who wore the pants in the relationship. And she wanted a wedding. Oh, boy. A door slammed, and I peered up at the house. Alexi had gone inside. I let out a breath. Was it yet another coincidence that Katie and Alexi were discussing rings? It had to be a stretch. I couldn't read into everything that happened, surely. But if I didn't, then what evidence did I have? Nothing. I turned and set off back down the sidewalk, heading toward the Sunny Side Up where I'd left my aunt's car. Chapter 19. I parked my aunt's VW Beetle in its usual spot, smiling at Fudge, who leapt against the picket fence, yipping happily. The cottage's porch lights were off. I had forgotten to switch them on this morning when I'd left, and seeing it in darkness compounded how much I missed my aunt. "Hey, Fudgy," I said, getting out of the car. I tried to keep my chin up and my attitude positive, but things were bleak. The case was beyond confusing, and the harder I tried to fit the pieces together, the more they slipped from my grasp. I let Fudge into the house and switched on the lights, then closed up behind myself and set the alarm. Bodger watched me from the kitchen doorway. "Nothing yet," I said to him, "but I'm trying. I promised I would find her, and I will." Bodger meowed, but he didn't sound convinced. I entered the kitchen and put out food for both Bodger and Fudge, then checked their water bowls. I put on a pot of coffee because sleep was out of the question tonight, then grabbed my mystery journal from my purse and sat down at the kitchen table. The cottage smelled faintly of my aunt, lavender, and cookies. It was a comforting smell under the usual circumstances, but now it was just a reminder. Okay, head in the game. What do we have here? I opened my mystery journal and scanned my notes, but there wasn't much to add. What could I write? That Alexi and Katie had broken up? That she wanted to get married and he didn't? Irrelevant. I was missing something important here. If only I could figure out what it was. The shrill screech of the house alarm cut right through my worries. Fudge yelped and started barking, and Bodger streaked out of the kitchen. I lurched from the table and ran into the hallway. The door was shut tight, so why was the alarm going off? A thump, barely audible over the screaming of the alarm, sounded deeper in the house. "Get out! Quickly!" "Fudge!" I yelled. "Fudge, come with me! Here, boy!" Fudge hauled butt toward the front door. I unlocked it, not bothering to switch off the alarm, and ran into the front yard. Nick was already on his way over from next door. "What's going on?" he yelled. "There's someone in the house." I didn't have my phone on me. "Call 911 or Garcia." The alarm company would pull up too, but I wanted law enforcement here. Nick whipped out his phone and backed away, blocking one ear, the other with the phone against it. Bodger streaked down the front path and joined us. Fudge sat on my left, Bodger on my right, while I folded my arms and stared at the cottage, waiting for something to happen. "Whoever it was, they're gone now," Officer Phillips said. "Where's Detective Garcia?" I asked. "I thought he would come out." "He's on his way. Look, Miss Charles, he's been busy, okay? There's a lot to deal with at the moment." I'd always thought Officer Phillips had a bad attitude, and Aunt Rita had been able to put him in his place. "I don't care how busy he is," I said stiffly. "My aunt is missing. A man was murdered next door, and my house was just broken into. I would like some answers, young man, and I want them now." Phillips wasn't much younger than me, but Aunt Rita had used the young man tactic successfully last time we'd had a run-in with Officer Phillips. The tall officer, with his ice-white eyebrows, wilted under my gaze. "Okay, I'm sure Detective Garcia will be here soon. But as for your cottage—" "My aunt's cottage." I didn't need to be touchy about that, but I was. "Right. Your aunt's cottage. Whoever broke in entered through the master bedroom's window." I was on the brink of losing my temper. Not because Officer Phillips had done anything wrong, but because I was completely stumped. I had spoken to the most likely suspects and even some who weren't likely, and there were no answers forthcoming. I didn't have the resources like the police. No clue whether there had been fingerprints on the box holding the lemon meringue pie or DNA on the ring. "Ah, here he is now," Officer Phillips said, gesturing to an SUV that had pulled to a stop in front of the house. Detective Garcia emerged, wearing a cloak of fatigue. Officer Phillips marched over to him and the two spoke quietly, with Phillips occasionally gesturing toward the cottage. Nick had retreated to his place and waited for me on the porch, watching the proceedings in silence, Fudge sitting beside him. Bodger had yet to leave my side. Finally, Detective Garcia pulled away from the officer and joined me. "Miss Charles?" he said. "What's going on?" I asked right away. His eyebrows drew together. "I can't say. Unfortunately, the suspect appears to have gotten away, but we're taking this seriously, Miss Charles. We're going to find out who did this and fast."
"Don't you think it's past time you call for help? For heaven's sake, my aunt is missing, and a man was murdered next door, and now this. The FBI should be called in. You can't tell me that these events aren't connected to—"
"I believe you're right," Garcia said, stalling my angry words with that admission. "Something strange is going on here." I held back the urge to tell him it had taken long enough for him to come to the realization. "I believe that your aunt's absence and the murder of Vince Domingo are connected. If these occurrences are connected, it may indicate a deeper issue."
"Like what?"
I asked, completely disarmed by his honesty and his willingness to be wrong and humble about it. "I'm not sure yet." "My past."
"Could it be connected to my husband's dealings?" I asked.
"In the past?" "We don't need to get ahead of ourselves. We have a few leads to follow, and I assure you, Miss Charles, we will get to the bottom of this. And find your aunt. I swear to you." He was so serious, his deep brown gaze fixed on me, beseeching me to believe him. "Thank you, Detective," I said. But if he thought I'd give up, he was delusional. Now, all that was left for me was to mull over how on earth I'd sleep in my aunt's cottage, what with the fear of someone breaking in at any given moment. "We'll find her, Sunny," Detective Garcia murmured. "She can't have been taken far." Chapter 20. The following morning. Thumping knocks brought me out of my sleep. I jolted upright on the sofa in my aunt's living room, flinging my arms out and bumping a glass of water from the coffee table and onto the carpet. Fudge barked and ran to the entry hall, leaving me to gain my bearings. What on earth was going on? It rushed back to me, a slew of images and thoughts. My aunt missing, the cottage broken into, Detective Garcia promising to help, me falling asleep on the sofa, afraid the alarm would go off again, while going over my notes and the pictures of my aunt's mystery journal. And now I had the Sunny Side Up Café to run. But what had woken me? I rubbed my eyes and blinked at the semi-lit living room. The sun had risen behind the curtains, and I forced myself up, yawning. Knocking came from the front door, followed by a frantic warble.
"Sunny, are you awake?"
I hurried through and keyed in the alarm code.
"Dee Dee?"
"Yeah, it's me. What's wrong?" I wrenched the door open and found Dee Dee on the doorstep. My friend's hair was in disarray, and her eyes were bloodshot. Fudge nuzzled her side with his wet nose, but she ignored him. Very unlike her.
"I'm sorry to stop by this early, but I just heard the news."
"About the break-in?" I asked.
"No, about Nick."
"Nick? What about Nick?" Dee Dee pressed a hand over her mouth.
"You don't know?"
"Don't know what? Come on, Dee Dee, spit it out. You're scaring me." She lowered her hand slowly.
"Nick's been arrested."
What? I grabbed her by the shoulders and drew her into the house. Fudge barked and jumped up, trying to lick Dee Dee's face, though he couldn't reach it. Please tell me you're kidding. I'm not. It happened earlier. What do you mean? What time is it? Sunny, it's 9 a.m, Dee Dee said, tears in her eyes. I thought you'd be at the cafe, but when I went in to check, you weren't there, so I came here and... What time did Garcia arrest him? And was Garcia mad? Why would he do this? Nick wasn't a killer. Garcia had promised me last night that he'd get to the bottom of this, but this wasn't it. Dee Dee? I don't know. I found out a half an hour ago. Why weren't you at the cafe, Sunny? I overslept. I released her, grabbing handfuls of my hair instead. You overslept? Dee Dee stared at me blankly. I'd never been late for work. It's been a stressful week, I replied. I have to go to the station. I have to see Nick. I moved toward the door, though I didn't have keys. Shoot, I hadn't even changed out of yesterday's work clothes. Sunny, stop. Dee Dee caught my arm. You can't do that. I have to. Dee Dee, it's Nick. He needs my help. There's nothing you can do. Sunny, you can't go down there and demand to see him. He's been arrested. That means Detective Garcia is calling the shots. What do you think will happen if you go down there demanding for him to be released? Dee Dee asked. It's only going to make things worse. Please, Sunny. I tried calming my breathing and absorbing what she'd said. What was I going to do? Charge down there and berate a detective? But it's just... I know. Dee Dee hugged me. It's Nick, and Rita's gone, and the Sunny Side Up is closed, and it's all a disaster. It's so bad I could just cry. Her voice warbled, and her sadness brought me back down to earth. I couldn't afford to be weak. Dee Dee needed me. Nick did too, now more than ever. And my aunt. I can't believe they arrested him, I croaked, and walked back into the living room. I lowered myself onto the sofa, burying my head in my hands and allowing myself a moment of unhappiness over this. Detective Garcia had to be crazy to think it was Nick. He would never have wanted to harm Rita, let alone his friend. I don't get it either, Dee Dee said. But they must have something, right? Evidence or, I don't know, like fingerprints or something? I grabbed my phone from the table and sent a message through to the Sunny Side Up's group chat to let them know we were closed for the next couple of days. Then I lifted the glass I'd knocked over earlier and placed it on the table. Thanks, Sunny. This isn't over yet. I don't believe for a second that Nick had anything to do with this, I said. And I know you don't either, Dee Dee. You know him as well as I do. Dee Dee straightened her tartan skirt and gave me a nod. Not a chance would Nick hurt any of us. Right. So we've got to figure out who really did this, and fast. The longer he's in custody, the more complicated this becomes. Okay, Dee Dee said and rose. What do you need me to do? I'll help in any way I can, Sunny. I want Rita back, and Nick. I smiled up at her, admiring her resolve. She'd gone from the brink of tears to determined to help, and she'd calmed me down, showing maturity beyond her years. Let's have some coffee, I said, and then we'll start from the top. What do you mean? I grabbed my mystery journal and opened it to the page containing my incomplete and flawed suspect list. I'm going to go through this list again and pay a visit to everyone on it until I figure out who did this. No matter how long it took or how much trouble I got into. I wouldn't let Nick take the fall for a crime he hadn't committed. The page drew my attention as well as the letters written at the very bottom of it. RRDS. Pies. 86. What was Aunt Rita trying to tell me? Chapter 21. Hello? I held my cell phone to my ear, my other hand on the VW Beetle's door handle. Sunny? Nick's voice crackled through the speaker. Nick, oh my gosh, are you okay? Silly question. He had to be terrified. Or angry. A combination of both. On the other side of the car, Dee paused with the car door half open. Let's just say I wasn't expecting a lot from today after what happened last night, but this was an unpleasant surprise. Nick, I'm so sorry. Is there anything I can do? No, nothing. I want you to stay safe, Sunny. Stay out of it. I've got a good lawyer, and I'm not saying anything to Detective Garcia. I've watched more than enough crime shows to know that I'll only dig myself into a hole if I do anything else. Have they asked you for a polygraph or anything like that? Nick hesitated. Sunny, I can't say much, and I don't want to get you into trouble, but... Please, give me something. Dee and I are going out of our minds with worry. Dee nodded frantically. I don't want you doing anything you'll regret. Nick, come on. An inhalation. They have my fingerprints on the lemon meringue pie box, and they didn't find evidence of a break-in at the cottage. Apparently, some of our neighbors saw me arguing with Vince outside your place, too. It's all adding up for them. But what about Rita? They think her writing about the pies and wanting to 86 them means she knew about the poisoning before it happened, and that I did something to her on the morning of her disappearance because I was the one who heard the noise and was in proximity. But they haven't even asked me any questions about this, I said. They haven't even... I know, Sunny, I know. I think they have a strong case, but I don't see how because I didn't do anything. You know that, right? I would trust you with my life, and so would Rita. That was a big thing for me to say, given that my last beau had left me with Russian mobsters on my tail. Thanks. I've got to go. I'll try to call. We'll try to visit, okay? Where are you? The county jail, he replied. But they do online visitations now, too. So, I have to go, Sunny. My time is up. And then he hung up. I let out my frustration in a thin stream of air. I can't believe Garcia's so blind. How can he think that it's Nick? Well, I don't get it either, Dee replied, pulling her leather jacket close around her. It wasn't that cold. Winter in Parfait never was, but Dee needed the comfort. Well, I said after a second, we won't get him out of county standing around out here. Let's go. We piled into my aunt's VW Beetle while Fudge and Bodger watched from the porch, both quiet for a change. They sensed things had gone wrong. For heaven's sake, Bodger hadn't even tried to scratch me in my sleep last night, and I'd passed out on the sofa. Seatbelts on, I said. Check. Can you open my mystery journal, please, Dee? Opened. Read out the names of the suspects. All right, she said. We have Alexi Shaw, Gordon from the restaurant, Shayna Domingo, wife of the victim, and Apple Pearson. Dee gave a little shudder. It was easy to forget that she was a college-aged kid sometimes, but this was a good reminder. I stopped myself from telling her that she should be at home studying. Dee had as much right as I did to want to solve this. She loved Rita and Nick, just like... No, you love Rita, not Nick. You like Nick. Oh, for heaven's sake, was this the time to be worrying about that? Okay, I sniffed. Alexi's connection to Vince is non-existent. The only thing we have on him is that he bought a slice of lemon meringue. I started the VW Beetle's engine and listened to the putt-putt. Strangely, it helped me focus. Gordon? Wouldn't lay a hand on Rita. No evidence that he'd seen Vince. Didn't seem to know he existed when I spoke to him about it. Shayna Domingo? Out of town. Lied about her connection to Vince, though. I wouldn't know where to start in tracking her down, other than trying to find her work address and driving out to Miami, assuming she's there. She said she was on the other side of the state when we spoke, and Miami isn't on the other side of the state relative to Parfait. Okay, are we going to do that? Dee Dee asked. I think we should focus on suspects closer to home first. So, Apple Pearson, Alexi Shaw. Those are our two main suspects right now. This felt rushed, but I wanted to follow what minuscule leads I had and work out my methodology along the way. So, Pearson first. We have to find out where she lives. Maybe Mildred will know? I know where she's staying, Dee Dee replied. She's at the Parfait Hotel. She mentioned it the last time she was in the cafe. Okay, awesome. Then let's go. I'll do the talking, okay? And you observe. I want you to check out every move she makes, whether she seems nervous or anything like that. Got it. Dee Dee patted the Beetle's dash. Man, this is going to be good. We're going to solve this case, aren't we, Sunny? Yeah. It was good to say it out loud, even though I had my doubts. We hadn't worked out the connection between Aunt Rita's notebook and the murder. There had to be a clue I'd missed, or an idea that had evaded me. Hopefully, something in today's conversations with our suspects would help us figure that out. There she is! Dee Dee pointed over the dashboard. She's right there. It looks like she's packing her car. And, indeed, Apple Pearson, one of the strangest women I'd ever met, was outside the Parfait Hotel in the parking lot loading her bags into the back. I pulled up behind her and cut the engine, effectively blocking her escape route. Apple didn't seem to notice. She loaded her bags into the trunk of her car, a low-key black sedan, yawning and scratching the back of her neck. Good morning. I got out of the car and ambled over. How are you today, Apple? The woman blinked at me. Hey, I remember you. You're the rabies lady. Rabies lady? The memory came back to me. Oh, right, yeah. Rabies lady. Sure. How are you today? I'm good, Apple said. Ready to get out of here. On to the next portion of my trip. Yeah? Where are you going? Apple shrugged. Wherever the wind takes me. She wore another tie-dye outfit, this time a pair of shorts and a shirt. Several wooden bangles clicked back and forth on her arms as she loaded her stuff into the sedan. That's nice. Have you enjoyed your stay in Parfait? Sure have. Well, apart from all the apples. She grimaced. So gross. There's only room for one apple in this town. Apple giggled at her joke, if it could be called that. Right. Come on, Sunny, get to the point. Apple, I've been meaning to talk to you about that guy, Vince. Vince? Oh, right. The guy that got poisoned and ruined the lemon meringue pie. Ruined it? Yeah, I can't get lemon meringue pie because he died and all of that. She rolled her eyes. I'll never understand people like that. Like what? The type of people who ruin all the fun. I didn't have long to be stunned by that proclamation. Apple slammed the trunk of her car shut. Hey, you're blocking me in. Mind moving out of the way? Well, in a second, I said. Apple, about Vince. What about him? Well, I had a couple questions. You mentioned that you were meant to go on a date with him, but you never heard back from him because of the whole apple pie thing, right? She lifted her shoulders and let them fall. When was the last time you heard from him? If I could ascertain a solid alibi from her, here and now I could cross her off the list. Gosh, I'd spent so much time confused about the connection between Aunt Rita and Vince Domingo's murder. I hadn't gotten alibis from most people. It was as if I'd thought staring at a page of clues and scribbles alone would solve the murder. I don't know. Sometime on Monday? Monday morning? Afternoon? Night? It was Monday afternoon. Late, she said. I was going over there to give him a piece of my mind about trying to take me out for apple pie. What did he say to you? I asked. Nothing. I didn't get to talk to him. I was on the front step and about to knock when I heard him in the house or cottage or whatever with some other woman. Another woman? My breathing picked up. What did she say? Well, I didn't hear much. I don't know, something about seeing things. Something, I don't know. Seeing things? Yeah. Apple glanced past me at the beetle, tapping her sandaled heel. They were arguing. Arguing. Apple didn't reply. Okay, and where did you go after that? I asked. I went out to eat at the Hungry Alligator, Apple said. That was the trouble with these alibis. She could have very well been at the Hungry Alligator, but that didn't make much of a difference. She didn't have to be at the crime scene to have killed Vince because he'd eaten a pie, for heaven's sake. And if her prints weren't on the box and... Look, I've got to leave now. I'm done talking about that dude. I already had to answer loads of questions from the detective, and he thinks I'm chill, so... Yeah. Right. Of course. Sorry, I'll get out of your way. I got back into the car, joined by Dee Dee, of course, and we drove off. Silence inundated the beetle. What do you think, Sunny? Dee Dee asked. Innocent? I don't know, I replied, on the brink of tears. I just do not know. This is the hardest case I've ever had to solve, and it's too close to home. You can do it. We can do it. I'm right here with you. I appreciated the comfort, but it didn't change the fact that I was up to my neck in clues and none of them made sense. Chapter 22. Okay, what else do we have? I asked as I pulled into my aunt's driveway and parked the car. Dee Dee pressed the pages of my mystery journal flat, one finger tracing across the names on it. We spoke to Gordon today and he didn't have anything to add. Like you said, he didn't know Vince. Right. Shayna didn't answer her phone, Dee Dee said, and a quick search of her social media profiles shows she's currently somewhere in New York. Times Square photo was a dead giveaway, I nodded. Okay, and then Alexei, well, we can't get hold of him. And Apple's gone, I added in. So that leaves, no one, apart from Cherry, Rose, and Detective Garcia, who bought lemon meringue pie to go from the Sunny Side Up. And as much as I'd love to believe Cherry was involved, we have no evidence of that. And Detective Garcia isn't exactly the murdering type, Dee Dee said. I resisted the urge to bang my head against the steering wheel. Let's go inside, Dee Dee said. We can have coffee and a snack. We don't have to give up yet, Sunny. We can figure it out. I don't know what I'd do without your encouragement, Dee Dee. We got out of the car, Fudge barking a welcome home while Bodger watched from the living room window. I grabbed the mail from the mailbox and then headed for the cottage. Once inside, we went through to my aunt's cute little kitchen. Okay, so what do we know? Dee Dee asked, busying herself with the coffee pot. That we have absolutely nothing of use. I flipped through the mail, trying not to let despondence close in on me. My aunt is missing, and Nick heard a thump early in the morning on Monday. She couldn't have been taken far. Right. And then there's the fact that Nick's friend died right next door, too. That could mean that my aunt would be around here somewhere? I don't know. It's all so fuzzy. Then there's the poison of choice. Arsenic. I don't know who would be able to get their hands on that. Isn't there an industry or something that uses it? Maybe. That's a good avenue to look into. Okay, I think that... I cut off, my eyes widening. Sunny? What's wrong? Dee froze, grasping the jar of coffee grounds. I lifted the letter in my hand and showed her the front of it. It was addressed to me in sweeping letters. This is my ex-husband's handwriting, I said. What? Damon's handwriting. He sent me a letter. But isn't he... dead? Yes, he's dead. He must have sent this ages ago. What on earth? I sat down at the table shakily. This was the last thing I'd expected. Dee kept her silence and continued preparing the coffee. I turned the letter over and peered at the return address. A hotel in the Bahamas. Wasn't that where Damon had been before he'd come to Parfait? Why would he have written me a letter from there that had only arrived now? I opened it, my heart palpitating. Sunny, honey, I'm writing this letter for you to let you know how I really feel. I'm hoping I'll hear back from you soon. I know you still love me, even though you chose to go through with a divorce. The arrogance was astounding. I had chosen to go through with it? He'd run off with his mistress, for Pete's sake. Listen, I've got something to tell you, and I know you're probably not going to like it, but we've got to talk about something important. First, like I said, I love you lots, okay? That's out of the way. Second, I need your wedding ring back. I blinked. What? I know that's a real weird thing to ask of you, but it's important. So, that wedding ring I gave you was actually somebody else's, an important friend of mine, and she needs her ring back, fast. Sunny, she's the kind of person you don't want to mess with, and if you don't give the ring back to me, then I can't guarantee that her friends won't come looking for it. The ring? The ring! My mind whirred into action. Look, don't get mad or anything. I'll give you another ring once I get back to the States. Just take that one off and go leave it at the place where we first met on campus, okay? That's where she's expecting it will be. Got it? Good. If I don't hear back from you in a week, I'll be coming down there to talk about our future together. We belong together, even though you have to give the ring back. Okay? Just give the ring back, please. Your perfect husband forever and ever, Damon Stokes. Sunny? The letter fell from my fingertips. I stared at it, gripping my forehead. Ring. Letter. Damon Stokes. D.S. Ring. D.S. R. Sunny, you're scaring me. I was hyperventilating, spitting the words out. I shushed Dee. Ring. R. R. What's the second R? D.S. has to be Damon Stokes. It has to be. But how did she know? I picked up the envelope. It had about 20 different stamps on it, as if it had gotten lost in the mail and been sent back and forth. Oh, my heavens. I scraped the chair back. Oh, my heavens. What is it? The ring. Russia. Mob. RR. Ring. Russia. Sunny! Dee came over and grabbed my arm. You're not making any sense. Please, tell me what's going on. I held up a hand. I needed a moment to gather my thoughts. Read the letter. Dee picked it up and started reading while I paced back and forth. Fudge, who had settled on his forepaws in the kitchen, tracked me with his doggy gaze. Damon had come to Parfait looking for me. He'd written a second letter, the one that had been found on his corpse when he'd passed in the Sunny Side Up Café. That letter hadn't mentioned my ring as far as I could recall, but had talked about getting back together with me. Clearly, Damon had realized that I hadn't followed through with his original request, the letter I'd received only today, and that he would have to find the ring himself. His reasoning for appearing in Parfait had never made sense to me, but now I got it. He had come back for the ring. Because that ring, my wedding ring, had belonged to one of his dangerous associates. In short, he must have stolen it. Stolen it and given it to me on our wedding day. Yeah, that was Damon, all right. Not that I'd known it at the time. "Oh, wow," Dee Dee whispered. "What on earth?" "I sold the ring," I said. "Long ago, to cover Damon's debts." "You don't think—" "Yeah, I do," I replied. "This woman who wants her ring back has come to Parfait looking for it. That or her associates have, and I would bet anything that they're Russian." "Alexei's Russian." "I know." I squeezed my fingers to the bridge of my nose. "But I don't understand how my aunt knew about all of this. How did she find out if this letter only arrived today?" Dee Dee shook her head, mute. "No wonder nothing made sense about this. No wonder. This wasn't some small-town murder. This is bigger than that. I knew it. I knew Damon's past would come back to bite me. I just knew it." A mixture of emotions broiled in my chest. Now I at least had some clue as to what was going on. But this was bad. It was one thing to poke around in local mysteries and write notes in my journal, but to get involved with Russian mobsters. The whole reason I'd come to Parfait and had my name changed to Charles was to get away from all of that. But it had found me, and my aunt, and Nick was being blamed for a murder that— Another gasp from my lips. Nick heard them taking my aunt. That was what the pie was about. They tried to poison Nick and make it look like I had done it. Why? Maybe they realized I don't have the ring. The break-ins. Oh my gosh. I grabbed my aunt's mystery journal and opened it. Look, RRDS. The break-ins were about the safe, and that's what this picture is. The weird blocky picture we couldn't figure out. It's got to be Aunt Rita's safe. And the letters. At least one of those R's has to stand for a ring, right? Right. Maybe the other one is Russia? Maybe. But then who's the one doing all of this, and why didn't they just attack me? And how on earth did my aunt know about the trouble with the pies before anything related to the poisoning took place? Dee Dee was at as much of a loss as I was. I stopped pacing. What do I do about this? I'll have to show Garcia, but he'll never believe me unless we have solid evidence. More solid than hearsay and clues. Well, how did Rita know? Dee Dee asked. I don't know. Wait. What? The safe. I tried to get into it near the start of the week. I was hoping maybe she'd put something in there, but I didn't have the code. I took off toward my aunt's room and entered it. The break-in last night had taken place here, but whoever it had been hadn't gone for the safe. Maybe they'd been coming for me. The thought sent my blood cold, but I didn't have time to worry about that. I opened my aunt's closet and found the safe. It had a simple number pad on the front that accepted a 4-digit code. RRDS. Surely not. Can I get your phone quick, Dee Dee? She had followed me, phone in hand. Well, of course. Dee Dee unlocked the screen and gave it to me. I opened the dialer on her phone and found the numpad. R is 7, I said, and punched in the number 7 twice. D is 3, and S is 7. I completed the code. The safe beeped and clicked open. You're a genius, Dee Dee said. No, I'm not. That took me way too long to figure out. It seems my aunt changed her code to reflect the clues. It can't be a coincidence. Now was the moment of truth. What was inside the safe? Chapter 23. The inside of the safe held a total of 3 items. The deed to the house, a simple golden watch with a pearlescent face, and a thin manila envelope with my name across the front. Naturally, the last item drove a spike of anticipation through my center. "What is that?" Dee Dee asked, lowering herself to the floor and sitting cross-legged, her skirt blanketing her knees. "An insurance policy," I said. "Not literally. My aunt left this here for me in case I didn't make it to the cafe. Or maybe it was in case she didn't." "Then why didn't she just tell you that in the first place? In the letter?" "Maybe she was afraid it would be intercepted by whoever orchestrated this whole series of events. I don't know." I opened the manila envelope and tipped out its contents. Several pieces of paper fell out of it, along with a tiny black object. "What's that?" I lifted it. A microphone. A tiny microphone. "What, like one of those bugs they use in spy movies?" "The room is bugged." Dee Dee flapped her hands. "Yeah. Are you serious?" "I think that's what it is. I mean, I'm not an expert, but yeah." I set the little device aside and picked up the next item. A cardboard box, one that had come from the Sunny Side Up, that had been pressed flat. It bore my name on the front in looping handwriting that looked similar to mine. "What on earth?" "That's one of our boxes, isn't it?" Dee Dee asked, taking it from me. "Yes, definitely." I lifted the final item, a letter with my name written across the front, this time in Aunt Rita's handwriting. I unfolded it. "Sunny, sweetheart, I'm writing this letter just in case something has happened to me on the way to the Sunny Side Up Café. I didn't want to risk leaving it at the house outside of the safe, where it could be taken. The most I wanted to do was instruct you to meet me. By now, you have found my journal and figured out the code to the safe. You will also know that I have no clue who is behind recent events. The break-in at the cottage that targeted the safe in my bedroom last month was my first clue that something was amiss. We dismissed it as being a part of a previous murder case, and we couldn't have been more wrong. I believe that some entity connected to your ex-husband is searching for something, whether that be money or an item in particular, and that they are closing the noose around our cottage as I write this letter to you. I found a recording device in the living room, behind the television, and yesterday afternoon, Sunday, I received a box of lemon meringue pie on the front porch that was meant for you. Had I not found the suspicious microphone, I might have given it to you. Instead, I threw it out, believing it to be compromised, perhaps even poisoned. I couldn't risk that happening again, so I am going to the cafe this morning to meet Nick and tell him to remove them from the menu." "Why didn't she just call him?" Dee Dee asked, reading over my shoulder. "Oh, I don't know. Maybe she couldn't get through? Nick didn't mention a missed call that I remember." If you haven't met me there, if something has happened and you are reading this letter without me, I want you to know that I am most suspicious of Alexei Shaw. I believe that his recent reappearance in Parfait so soon after yours can't be coincidental, and that whoever he's working for, it must be connected to that idiot ex-husband of yours. I'm sorry, Sunny. I've tried my best. The rest is up to you. With all my love, Aunt Rita. P.S. If you're reading this alone and something has happened to me, I trust that you will look after Bodger, and also that you'll find me. Fast. P.P.S. If, however, we're reading this together, my apologies for the paranoia in this letter. Ha! I folded the letter again and clasped it to my chest, tears spilling down my cheeks. It's okay, Sunny. We'll find her. She gave us all the clues. And now we know what's going on. Someone tried to poison you. I sniffed, forcing myself to gather strength, to focus. But why not do it now? And if they're looking for something, why not reach out and try to ask me for the ring instead of killing a man and abducting my aunt? Dee Dee didn't answer, and I didn't expect her to. How could she know when I didn't myself? There had to be a reasonable explanation for it. Then again, they had broken into the cottage the other night and come for me, but why not come sooner? What were they waiting for? I wasn't going to hang around to find out. Come on, I said, slipping everything back into the safe and shutting it tight. We've got to get out of here. Where are we going? I wiped my eyes. The Parfait animal shelter. I'm going to track down Alexei Shaw and find out what he did with my aunt. Chapter 24. It was evening by the time we arrived at the Parfait animal shelter, and the bustle from the hungry alligator down the road didn't lighten my mood tonight. Thankfully, the lights were still on inside the shelter. Mildred was in there, and she'd be able to point us in the right direction. Not that she'd be very happy about it. I'm nervous, Dee Dee whispered. Me too. I removed my seatbelt. Dee Dee, after this, I'm taking you home, no matter what happens, okay? I can't have you with me if things start getting dangerous. It's not responsible, and you're not a part of it. Sunny, come on, Dee Dee whined. You can't be serious. I'm as much a part of this as you are at this point. I mean, Nick and Rita and the Sunny Side Up closed, and if anything happens to you, nothing's going to happen to me, I said firmly. Nothing. But you are going to go home after this, okay? Fine. But I don't like it. I want to help. You've already helped. Tons. This wasn't just because Dee Dee was young and had her entire life ahead of her. It was because I didn't want more death or trouble on my shoulders, as selfish as that was. We got out of the car and into the salty evening air. Laughter traveled down the boardwalk, accompanied by the distant chatter of a group of people outside the restaurant. The beach was empty except for a lone man strolling along it, his hands in his pockets. I ignored the details and dipped into the animal shelter. Millie, are you... The interior of the animal shelter was in disarray. The cookie jar, Millie's beloved cookie jar, lay shattered on the scratched tiles, her grave dust cookies trampled and broken. A lamp had been knocked over, as had the water cooler. Dee Dee let out a raw shriek, clasping a hand over her mouth and pointing to the counter. Behind it, Millie lay on the floor on her side. Millie! I dropped to my knees and checked her pulse. It was steady, and her chest rose and fell evenly. A huge knot had risen on her forehead, bright red and angry. Dee Dee, I need you to call 911, okay? Call 911 right now. The server stared blankly, swaying on the spot. Now, Dee Dee. Oh, okay, she said. Yeah, okay. I carefully turned Millie over and checked for other wounds, supporting her head and neck as I did. Millie? Can you hear me? Millie? Sunny, dear? Her eyelids fluttered. Sunny. She focused on me, her vision hazy. How nice of you to drop by. Millie, I said, relief shuddering through my chest. Are you okay? Are you hurt anywhere other than your head? Can you move your fingers and toes? Millie wiggled her fingers and shifted her feet in their flat-soled slip-ons. Yes, they're fine. What happened?
Well, I'm not sure, dear. Let me think. Behind me, the frantic sound of Dee Dee calling for help faded to background noise. Oh, dear. Oh, no. Millie tried to lift herself off the floor. No, Millie, lie still. We don't know the extent of your injuries. It was a woman, she said. A woman wearing a mask. She came into the shelter and she asked me for Alexei. She had a thick accent. I told her to go away and that I didn't know where he was. She hit me. That witch hit me. Millie's voice tremored with rage. I'd never seen her properly angry. You don't know where Alexei is? I asked. No, I haven't seen him for 2 days now. Something's wrong with him, Sunny. I can feel it. Please, you have to help him. She struggled to get up again, but I held her down by the shoulders. Let me up, Sunny, dear. I must find Alexei. No, Millie, I'll do it. I'll find him, I said. I'll go to your house and find him. It had to be the one I'd seen Katie and Alexei at the other night. They'd been staying with Millie. You will? Really, Sunny? Yes, I said, but only if you promise to stay here until an ambulance comes to check you're all right. Okay, I will. I promise. Good. I'll be right back. And hopefully I'd be back with good news. That Alexei wasn't a killer. But it was beginning to look more and more like that wouldn't be the case. He had to be involved. Dee Dee, I said, rising from my couch. I've got to go. Stay with Millie, please, and make sure she doesn't move, okay? What? You're leaving? Where are you going? What? I'll be fine, I said, cutting her off before she could gather too much steam. Just stay with Millie, please. Okay, yeah, I will. Dee Dee grabbed my hand and squeezed. But be careful, please, Sunny. Don't do anything crazy. I smiled at Dee Dee a final time, pouring all my confidence and courage into the expression. I won't. It was the first time I had lied to my friend. I would do whatever it took to find my aunt and free Nick. I slipped out of the shelter and into my aunt's car, ready for whatever would come next. Chapter 25. My aunt's car grunted to a halt outside Millie's house. Thankfully, I remembered where it was after I'd followed Alexei here earlier in the week. The small house, with its rickety fence and dry grass in the front yard, was quiet. The lights were off, but the lampposts on the street cast relief on the house, revealing that the front door was ajar. An open front door in a dark house. Never a good sign. I left my aunt's car and hurried up to the porch, clutching my purse to my side, fear clawing at my throat. Are you really going to go in there without any protection? I fished my aunt's trusty can of pepper spray out of my purse and held it out in front of me. Gosh, anyone looking at me from one of the surrounding houses would laugh hysterically at the sight. Funnily enough, I wasn't in a laughing mood. Or, unfunnily enough. Concentrate. I nudged the front door open with the toe of my tennis shoe. It didn't do the horror movie creak, but I still held my breath. Mildred's house was entirely silent. I entered it, slowly, fumbling my cell phone from my purse. I turned on the flashlight and cast its blue-hued beam over the hallway. It was narrow, the wallpaper peeling off the walls, though the picture frames on them were clean and straight. Each picture showed Millie with her family, and a few of them contained Alexei. Slowly, quietly. I checked the rooms one by one, searching for any evidence of Alexei. He had to have been in here, right? Or was he still here, lying in wait?
Chills traveled down my spine, and I mentally reprimanded myself. The house was a single story, smelling faintly of mothballs, and with carpeted floors that had seen better days. More importantly, it was empty. No Alexi, no Katie, nobody. I switched on the hall light and shut the front door, then went through the house again, this time turning on the lights in every room, confident now that I was sure Lexi wasn't about to leap from a closet, knife in hand. The master bedroom, Millie's room, had a neatly made bed with a worn, flowery comforter and the same worn wallpaper. A dressing table had been pushed against the wall, with a few items laid out atop it. Nothing of interest. The next room must have been Alexi's. It was small, with a set of weights in the corner and the closet doors open, showing off coats, jeans, and shirts. And the third room was an utter mess. The bed was unmade, the closet doors had been pulled open and emptied, and the desk in the corner had its drawers removed. Katie's room? But why so messed up? I entered it, pocketing both my phone and my pepper spray, my curiosity at its peak. What was going on here? Why had Katie ruined her room? Was this because of the breakup with Alexi? Something yellow on the floor caught my attention, and I bent to check it out. My jaw dropped. It was a banana. A small plastic banana attached to the end of a keychain, and the keys it had held long gone. I had seen the same keychain with its silly banana at the beginning of this week, just before Vince had died. I had watched as Nick had handed them to Vince and asked him to lock the basement door. And later, Nick had mentioned... He had mentioned that the police hadn't checked his basement. What did he say? That there was a raccoon down there. A raccoon in the basement, I murmured, closing my hand around the banana keychain. Nick must have heard noises from his basement, and now his key was in Katie's room. Thoughts rushed in, pieces of the mystery sliding and locking into place, forming a complete Jenga tower. Katie had said to Alexi that they couldn't be together until he got down on one knee and gave her that ring. Not a ring, or until you propose. Her wording had been super specific, and Alexi had been pale and distraught, arguing with her because he didn't want to go through with whatever she had planned. And Millie, well, Millie had said that the woman who had knocked her out had a Russian accent, which Katie didn't, right? My breaths came in short gasps. I whipped my phone out of my pocket and unlocked the screen. Quickly, I navigated to my browser and typed in Katie Pyle. Nothing came up. No social media pages. Not even one. I searched for Alexi next and found him. Many of the pictures on his Get Up page had been taken in the animal shelter, and one of them was of Katie, standing shyly in front of a steel wash basin, holding a foamy sponge. Bingo, I whispered. I copied the image and did a search, and the matches popped up. 2 pictures of Katie with blonde hair wearing bright red lipstick. Except her name wasn't Katie. It was Alyana Volkov. Oh my. Oh my. Oh my. The next words wouldn't come, and it was a good thing too, since they wouldn't have been proper. And then another set of facts hit me. I'd always thought Katie had a strange accent I couldn't quite place, and that the reason she didn't talk often was because she was incurably shy. But maybe that had been to keep a low profile and prevent the need to talk too much and give away the fact that she did have an accent. Because she was Russian. Another memory rose, one from a few weeks ago, during the last investigation, when Gwendoline, the head of the Baking Biddies, had died. At one point, Katie had grasped my hand and admired my rings. She had asked me where I'd gotten them. Because she was looking for the ring Damon had mentioned. the ring that belonged to the mob boss's wife. I had been crouched on the floor for the past few minutes, revelation after revelation smacking me square in the face. Katie Pyle, or rather, Eliana Volkov, had come to find me, and since she was part of a Russian crime gang or ring, she would have had access to weapons and poisons and whatever she needed to get the job done. I rose, swiftly tucking my phone into my purse. Katie had killed Vince, though she had intended the pie for Nick, because Nick had heard her overpowering my aunt, and my aunt... The basement. She's in Nick's basement. That had to be where Katie had been watching me from, all along. Chapter 26. Nick's house was as quiet and dark as Millie's had been. And yeah, I was pretty much over this type of ambiance. Who needed cold, dark, and terrifying when you could have warm and inviting in a small town like Parfait? You're not even making sense. Calm down, Sunny. I had already sent off 2 text messages, one to Dee Dee asking her to track down Garcia and tell him everything we'd found so far, and the second to Detective Garcia himself. I wasn't about to do anything without the knowledge that backup was on the way. The only defense I had now was my aunt's pepper spray. I clasped it in my sweaty hand, ignoring the barks from Fudge in her front yard, and got out of the car. My phone was safely tucked into the pocket of my jeans. You can do this. It's going to work out. It didn't matter if it worked out or not at this point. I had to find my aunt. And now that all the puzzle pieces had clicked into place, there wasn't a shot in all that was hot and fiery that I'd leave this up to Garcia, or Officer Phillips, or any other Parfait law enforcement official. I wouldn't leave my aunt in this house for a second longer. Shush, Fudge, I whispered, giving him a pat on the head. Then I turned and set off down the sidewalk. The walk up Nick's front path, taken in silence across the stepping stones, felt like a funeral march. What was it Damon had always said about me? That I wasn't worth much, that I wouldn't amount to much, and that I had the spine of a jellyfish. I believed that I'd proven him wrong by now, not that I cared any longer. Damon was the one who had landed us in this mess in the first place. If the man hadn't been dead, I'd have tracked him down and given him a piece of my mind. I rounded the side of the house, alternating between scanning the bushes and trees for any sign of movement and watching the cottage itself. The egress window was at the back of the house, low against the wall. The latch was broken. Carefully, I lowered myself to the ground, onto my stomach, and reached over the lip of concrete. I opened the window, listening for sounds of movement in the basement. Nothing. Silence. Okay, she's not here. She's probably out somewhere, poisoning someone else. I sat up and fed my feet through the window, bracing myself on the ground, the pepper spray sliding in my grasp. My feet hit something. A box or a ledge, and I paused, squinting into the darkness in the basement. A set of shelves. I rested my weight on them and found the shelving was sturdy. I crouched, entering the basement fully and searching the darkness. Lumpy shapes formed, silhouettes of objects. Footsteps creaked upstairs and I held my breath. Katie was in the house. Now that Nick had been arrested, she'd likely decided to move in up there rather than having to live down here. Her voice traveled from above. Duh, I have done what can be done. I didn't find the ring, she was saying. First you tell me to kill her, then to spare her. I can't work like this. This was good. She was distracted. It's not my fault this has been such a... Katie broke off, listening to whoever was on the other end of the line. The basement door that led into the cottage had to be open if I could hear her so clearly. Her words faded as she left the vicinity of that door. Quickly, I leapt off the shelving and onto the concrete floor, landing with a heavy thud. I winced, listening. Katie's voice remained distant, her words now in Russian rather than English. And there was another noise, one closer in the darkness, a shuffling and then a grunt. I moved toward the noise, pulse racing, my hand straying to my pocket. I removed my phone and, with what was either bravery or stupidity, unlocked the screen. Light spilled into the basement, revealing the hunched-over figure in the corner. No, not one, but two. My aunt, her hands and feet tied in front of her, sitting straight-backed as a queen with tape over her mouth. Alexei beside her, out cold with a bump on the front of his head. I nearly let out a cry of elation. Aunt Rita lifted her bound wrists, and I searched around for something to cut them with. The basement was filled with boxes and dressers, old chairs and dust. Nothing that would cut a cable tie. I would need to venture into the house. Regardless, I came forward and removed the tape from my aunt's mouth. "I take it you got my letter in the safe?" she whispered. "Good job, Sunny, sweetheart. I knew I could count on you." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "I'm going to find something to cut you free. I'll leave my phone in your lap. I'm going to dial 911. Can you speak to them?" "Yes, sweetheart, of course." "When did you get Alexei?" I asked, maybe because I didn't want to go upstairs and find a pair of scissors. If I could stall long enough for the police to show up, it wouldn't be necessary. "Right after he told her he couldn't do anything illegal. He didn't know, I think. He came down here after I banged my head against the pipe." Aunt Rita gestured toward a pipe at the other end of the basement. "Okay, here, you talk to 911. I put the phone in her lap and dialed it, then started toward the basement stairs in the half-dark. The overhead bulb switched on, and for one wild moment, I was sure that my aunt had managed to free herself and turn it on for us. Katie strode down the stairs, tapping a cudgel against her palm. "I see you have found out the truth." "Look, there's no need to get violent," I said, holding up my palms. "I'm not going to tell anyone you abducted my aunt and murdered Vince Domingo." I shouted the last part for the benefit of the phone in my aunt's lap. Alexei groaned and shifted. "I'll tell you what, Sunny," Katie said. "You give me the ring, and I will leave you all behind. All right? Just the ring. Don't worry about the millions that your filthy husband stole from Petrov." Ah, that made a little more sense. Katie was here for more than a ring. She was here for revenge. "Why didn't you just kill me?" I asked, stalling as best I could. "If you were so sure that I had what you wanted, why not kill me and take it from my dead body?" The mobster rolled her eyes. "You Americans are so stupid." She patted her forehead. "Even Alexei. He comes to live here and he has become stupid." "You knew him?" "No. Just because I'm Russian, too, doesn't mean we are related or friends. Typical American way of thinking." Katie's accent was thick when she wasn't pretending to be a timid young woman. "All right, that's quite enough of the anti-American sentiment," Rita said stiffly. "We're not the ones who poisoned a man or abducted anyone. Get off your darn high horse." "You shut up." "Don't talk to her like that," I said, the pepper spray still tucked against my palm. "You still haven't answered my question. Why didn't you kill me like you killed Vince?" "Information," Katie said. "We know that you helped Stokes fake his death. We want to know where he is." "Fake his—" "I'm sorry to disappoint you," I said, "but Damon is very much dead. And down below where he belongs." Aunt Rita was surprisingly venomous for a captive. Then again, she'd been cloistered in a basement for nearly a week. No wonder she was angry. She'd missed all her favorite shows and the chance to berate Primrose about the concept of the Baking Biddies Craftathon. He is not dead. He cannot be. He owes us money. Money and the ring. Damon spent all your money, I replied, and I sold that ring. My wedding ring. Or your boss's wife's wedding ring. You sold it? Yes, I said, to help pay for the debts Damon created. Katie strode toward me, her lips pulling back over her teeth. Then you will die too. She raised the cudgel. Sunny, Aunt Rita cried. I brought up the pepper spray and released a stream of liquid. Most hit Katie's forehead, but the second burst of bright blue fluid caught her directly in the eyes. Katie screamed and dropped the cudgel, then fell to her knees and covered her eyes. There are cable ties over there, Aunt Rita shouted, jerking her head toward the corner where several boxes had been stacked on top of each other. Shout out Nick's address, I cried back to my aunt, racing over and grabbing the cable ties. Katie struggled to her feet, screeching, her eyes still covered with her hands. I had no choice. I ran at her and tackled her to the ground. Her head hit the concrete, and she fell silent. Oh, heavens, tell me I didn't... But no, she was still breathing, thank goodness. I secured her hands and feet with cable ties, then ran upstairs into the house, switching on lights as I went. I found a pair of scissors in the kitchen and streaked back down to my aunt. I had both her and Alexi free within seconds, while Katie writhed on the floor. My aunt rose, rubbing her wrists. Do you know, that creature hid me in a bush for half a day before bringing me down here. She only got Nick's key after she murdered his house guest. And what a fuss that caused, I'll tell you. She spent the next day arguing with whoever's on the other end of that line. All Russian, mind you. Nothing I could figure out. I threw my arms around my unsinkable aunt and squeezed her tight. She laughed and kissed me on the cheek. There. It's all right now. How's Bodger? Worried about you. My aunt grabbed my phone off the floor and pressed it to her ear. Hello, 911? Yes, hello. I suppose you heard all of that? No? Let me give you the address. I let her do the talking, opting instead to stand over Katie and watch that she didn't move. 15 minutes later, Detective Garcia and 4 police officers arrived. Aunt Rita let them in through the front door and they trooped downstairs. Garcia didn't meet my eye until after Katie had been taken from the room. He cleared his throat 3 times. We received a call earlier today, the detective said, from an FBI special agent by the name of Delilah Moore. She mentioned that you might be in, some danger, you see. Some danger. Delilah Moore? I frowned. The name wasn't familiar. I had dealt with a different agent when I'd been placed in the protection program and had my last name changed. Yeah, apparently the Petrov family was interested in you and Mr. Stokes. Delilah's coming down from New York to participate in the investigation into what happened here. I think you'll find that Sunny can tell you all the messy details, Aunt Rita said primly. She's very thorough when she investigates. Unlike some people. Look, Miss Charles, I'm sorry. I've been under a lot of pressure lately, and all the evidence pointed toward Mr. Talbot being the perpetrator. How didn't you find my aunt down here? I asked. I mean, not his fault for that, Rita said. Katie moved me before they arrived, then moved me back in. I've been bouncing back and forth between our backyard and Nick's cottage under the cover of night for the last week. It was all too much to handle. What now? I asked. Special Agent Moore will sort that out. I have a feeling she's going to be the Petrov family's new headache, Detective Garcia said. Good. My Aunt Rita massaged her forehead this time. Speaking of headaches, would anyone mind getting me a glass of water? Now. Detective Garcia himself ran off to get it for her, while medics flooded the basement and gathered around Alexi. I hugged my aunt. She was fine. Life could get back to normal again once Nick was released. As normal as it could be in Parfait, Florida. Chapter 27. That Sunday. After everything that had happened this week, the Baking Biddies Craftathon, an event which usually would have intimidated me due to the sheer size of the crowds it drew in, was a cakewalk. Unfortunately, not in the literal sense of the phrase. I heard you tackled the killer. Frances Grace, the grumpiest customer the Sunny Side Up had ever hosted, stood behind her table. She'd created a carrot cake in the shape of a gingerbread man. With your bare hands. Is that true? Don't believe everything you hear, Frances. I smiled at her, walking along and checking that the next table had all the ingredients it needed. The less I revealed about what had happened in Nick's basement, the better. As it turned out, Alexi hadn't been behind any of it. He had truthfully fallen in love with Katie, who had played him for a fool, telling him that she wanted marriage and that she would only accept a specific ring, one he could find in my aunt's cottage. He had refused to steal it and eventually confronted her when she'd summoned him to Nick's house. Hence the fact that he was now recovering from a concussion, as was Millie. Both of them sat on sun-strewn benches along the boardwalk, watching the craftathon with milkshakes from the Sunny Side Up. I don't get it, Sienna whined at the next table. What are we supposed to do? This is dumb, Cherry agreed, casting her mean gaze my way. Whoever came up with this idea is an idiot. I readjusted my Baking Biddies pin on the breast pocket of my silk blouse. Now, ladies, let's not get angry. It's a lovely, temperate day. You've got your water and all your ingredients. Remember, the winner of the craftathon gets a $1,000 cash prize shared with your chosen charity. Shared? Pah! Who wants to share? Sienna muttered. The point of the Baking Biddies craftathon was to create a delicious treat in an interesting arrangement. So a tower made of cookies, or a castle of cake, that kind of thing. It was fun and pressure-free compared to what had transpired over the past week. I moved from table to table, helping organize the groups of people and stopping to chat with a few of the other Baking Biddies members. I felt a part of the group for the first time since I'd been accepted. Sunny. Nick's voice reached me from the other side of the road. The handsome chef waved, wearing his chef whites, and I headed across the road to join him, signaling my Baking Biddies partner to take over for a minute. Hey, I said, grinning at him. You look happy. What's not to be happy about? Nick asked. I'm a free man. I'm back at work. Rita is in there, regaling everyone with tales of her captivity, and I no longer have a raccoon in my basement, thanks to you. He winked. Stop, you're making me blush. Nick swept me into his arms, in full view of everyone, and planted a kiss on my cheek. Nick, that's not appropriate. But I couldn't hide my smile. Ah, whatever. If I can't kiss my girlfriend on a sunny day, the best day of my life so far, then I don't want to live in this town anyway. Your girlfriend? If you'll have me, Nick said. I held back a childish squeal of glee. Of course I will. I kissed him on the cheek, careless about the stares from the women across the road, in particular Cherry and Sienna. All right, you two. My aunt appeared in the Sunny Side Up's doors. I promised the diners in here food, not a show. Dee Dee giggled, looping an arm through my aunt's. I think it's cute. That's because you're young and sweet, not old and bitter like me, Aunt Rita said. Don't look now, Rita, Dee Dee replied.
But Gordon from the Hungry Alligator is on his way over. Don't tease. Rita patted her on the arm. I laughed, letting the joy fill me to the brim. The sounds of happiness, the smell of the sea, and the clatter from within the cafe had become the new melody of my life. A wonderful replacement for the empty silence that had inhabited the house on the hill in Chicago. For the first time in my life, I was happy. I was home.
This has been Lemon Murder Pie by Rosie A. Point, narrated by Abigail Reno. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more cozy audiobooks.